Okay, so how are you? Starting up with block 2.
Yeah, excited.
It's a different kind of block. Where block 1 is very theoretical, a lot of theories thrown at you. This block will be more practical in that sense. But yes, I'm of course going to bother you with the whole research as well. And what I'm mainly going to do in this block is talk with you about your research proposals. So today I also want to talk about application companies. Yeah? First of all, I understand that we use different kind of platforms to communicate. So we have Teams and Cum Laude and emails. But I just want to show you that once more, that for research, I basically use one platform, and that is Cum Laude. Yeah? And sometimes I add something to the weekly mail just to remind you, we agreed that you would prepare something or something like that. Because I received already some questions about, how was it again with the deadlines? We are a bit confused. But everything is on that Cum Laude 3 or 4 times. So I want to show you once more because I don't want you to be confused. So it's the research course and the research assignments 1920. That's most likely the only research course you can see. And what I do, so here you have the general course materials. So already here you find the manuals, but also that planning that I showed you with all the deadlines. They're also in the slides, but the deadlines are in the manual and are also in that planning. Furthermore, I put all research classes, so the slides of all research classes and the link to the web lectures in this folder. But I also, this is touchscreen. But I also put them in, so all the classes about literature review assignment, I also copied here. Yeah, so there are a lot of things twice there. But basically, which folder you open, you should already get a lot of information, yeah? So make sure you check, so here you see all the classroom recordings. Also the articles I use in my classes, for example, here the workshop of Emily is there because it related to, sorry, I have to get used to this. Close. Yeah, and here now in Imagineering proposal, I will put all the material for block 2 basically, yes? So the classes can also be found here, but here I put, the assessment form is already there, and I keep on adding it, as I said, while I teach, I keep on adding material. So if you're confused, always first go here, and then email me, yeah, if you cannot find it here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you all comfortable, or do you want to add a table to it, or because it's fine, eh? If you want to use the high table, it's also fine by me. Yeah, you're good, okay.
Yeah.
So just to refresh your memories, some people cancelled also today. They emailed me because they want to work on the literature review. But 17 November, so that is not this Sunday, but next week Sunday. It's the first deadline for your literature review, and the second deadline is the 22 of December, just before the holidays. Yes. For the proposal, however, we have more deadlines, although you can only choose 2. Yeah, so you can only formally use 2 of those 4 deadlines. That's part of our exam regulations, that students can only be formally assessed twice a year. Yeah, you only get 2 opportunities a year. But we give you more deadlines depending on, to indicate where you are in the whole process. So if you just look at the final deliverables, for this academic year we have 2 deadlines. In June to submit your paper, or in August. Yeah? Once you miss those deadlines, you have to do it next academic year. Then December we have a new deadline, in March, etc. But that is outside the tuition fee of this year. So here you see June and August as deadline for your paper. So here, for your research proposal, you see that I put in brackets June or August. So you have two deadlines for your research proposal. If you pass that research proposal on either of those two deadlines, you're still on track for June. But sometimes it takes, there are some bump in the roads, you know, to get an application company or something like that. So we also put two deadlines that you can use for August. Yeah, and if you pass your proposal on either of those two deadlines, you're still on track for August. Yes? But you cannot formally submit on all four. Yeah, you can only formally submit twice. Does that make sense?
But if we submit in June, first time and second time, I don't know, and then we didn't pass, then we submit in August?
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
So we'll be submitting like 3 times.
You talk about the paper now or the proposal?
The slide before that. The research proposal. So if we send it on 2 February and we didn't pass,
you can use 8 March, and when you pass, you're still on track for June.
Okay.
Yes?
But if we didn't pass it, then we submit it on 3 May and it's for August.
Yes, exactly.
But do we have a first draft, second draft?
Yeah, so you work with your coach, you know, just the drafts, you know, that is in the coaching process. But this is about formally submitting on cum laude, on LMS, and then 2 assessors look at it and grade you. So this is really about the grading. So you formally submit for a grade. Of course, you have multiple drafts, you know, you work with your coach, etc. Yeah? But the dates, it's important that the dates indicate where you are, if you are still on track to submit the paper in June or that you're now on track to submit the paper in August. Yeah? So if you're not able to have your proposal passed on the 31 of May, you're automatically delayed. Yeah? So that means in the new academic year, you can only submit this final paper.
Does that mean that we would pay tuition again for?
Yes, and then you pay an extra fee. Yeah, yeah. So that's why it's important. That's why I put these things in brackets, because it's important to understand which deadlines relate to which final deadlines for the paper. Yeah. So already to talk a little bit about the end. So in the end, you submit the Imagineering paper, the business inspiration report, and within your business inspiration report, you also talk about your creative tension engine that you developed. And then in June and August, we have the deadline. And you see the paper is 50% of your final grade, business inspiration report 30, and the creative tension engine is 20. So your proposal is kind of, you know, the start of the Imagineering project, because then you propose what you want to do, and this is the end. What you report on what you actually have done and what you leave behind in your application company via the business inspiration report and the creative tension engine. Yeah. So the two are very closely related, of course, the proposal and the final paper. So the research objective, these are some learning objectives. So first of all, you have in the end, and also part of this assessment for the research proposal, you have to show that you are able to design and apply an Imagineering research in a specific context. And so that is, because in your proposal you design this whole project, and then in the last part of this academic year, you actually apply it, put it into practice. So you need to be able to generate new insights for a specific context, the application company context, in a rigorous way. And there I come in, because I try to explain to you how you do that in a rigorous way. You cannot just go into an application company and say, oh, I have a great idea and we're just going to do that. You somehow have to research it or be very systematic in how you gather your data, how you interpret your data, why you arrive at certain findings, etc. That's what we mean with rigorous way. You have to follow certain rules, so people say this is a proper research, that is properly done. And of course we do Imagineering research, so it's not only about the research, but through the whole Imagineering project you should be able to evoke and design for collective creativity. Yeah? That's part of it. It's not only the research, but it's also the impact of it and the interventions that you design and what kind of impact it has on the transformation that you want to address. So I assume that you have written a research proposal before.
No.
Yeah, I see yes, I see no. Paulina, did you?
I guess, but it was called differently.
Okay, yeah. Zoe?
Same.
Same.
Yeah.
How was it called?
Oh, no.
Maybe it's not exactly the same thing. I'm not sure exactly what it means by a research proposal either.
It basically argues what your research is about and how you're going to approach it.
And it's formally written out.
Yeah, it's a formal document to inform your coaches or...
So
Yeah?
Yeah, like the actual issue, like why is it important, why you want
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. How you're going to do it. Yeah? Yeah? No?
No.
Yes? No? No? Other kinds of proposals that you've written? In your study career or in your professional careers? Because we propose a lot, in our, even in our daily lives. We constantly, propose things, we do proposals. So I can imagine a project proposal or something like that you've written before. What I'm going to give you a marker, and I want to use the whiteboard because I just want to pick your brain a little bit on, if we talk about research or research proposal or proposal, what do you find difficult? What do you hope to learn? Because for me it's important to know a little bit, about your needs to make these classes successful. So to know where I should focus on or should pay extra attention to, etc. So I would like to ask you on the whiteboard behind you, just to write some things. Oh, these are without a cap. To write down some things about, what do I have question marks about, what do I find difficult, what would I like to learn, whatever.
Is it the same with literature review, like for proposals when we get our research done? Do we also like combine different resources, or it's just like from one resource I found this and from another resource I found this?
No, so the literature review is part of your proposal, and everything that I've discussed with you about literature review applies to the proposal writing as well, and the literature review in your proposal. The aim is a little bit different, because for the assignment you have to argue further possibilities for research, whereas in your proposal it kind of grounds your research questions in the literature.
But what if we have a different literature review topic?
Yeah, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I don't assume automatically that your literature review assignment topic is automatically related to your research proposal. You don't assume that. Okay, well, let's have a look together. What you have written down. How to make it appealing? Which tools can we use to formulate it? What do you mean with how to make it appealing?
Like for example, if I'll give it to someone to read, and he or she will really want to read it.
Okay, yes, yes, okay. Yeah. Attractive to read, yes. Yeah. Because you don't necessarily have to write in a very abstract or formal way. We are Imagineers, so you can still write in a very playful way, as long as you support your claims by sources, etc. So we can. Which tools can we use to formulate it? What's it?
More about the structure. Like it's more about the
Yeah,
overall
the
structure.
same.
Maybe just some schemes or something.
Structure, yes. And tools?
Yeah, for example, there will be like a scheme on how we could.
Oh, yeah. I get it. Okay. Should I address the possible deliverables? Well, I will say something about it today, but let's say yes. Or not so much the deliverables, but you have to think about what kind of transformation are we aiming at. And that is something you have to define. What's your challenge? What kind of transformation is needed? So that relates to the deliverables. Imagineering research is not about I'm going to develop a marketing strategy. Yeah? We're not into that, not this defined product, but we focus on transformation. Who is the target group I write to? Well, I can already answer this. I will say something about it today. But basically, it's your coach, but you also should think of colleagues, your application company, etc. So it means it has to be clear for multiple target groups. Do I have to mention what inspired me? Okay, that's easy. I can already tackle some questions. Yes. Yes. Is it only addressed to the application company? Yes. So it's very focused. It's about the challenge at the application company, what kind of transformation you're aiming at, and how you're going to design that. That's in a nutshell what your proposal is about.
But still make it clear for others. So
Yeah.
if I'm talking about the topic that is
Yeah.
specific for the company, I need to
Take other people by the hands to step by step help them to understand what's going on. But take your reader by the hand is probably a phrase you will hear a lot from your coach as well, also in your paper writing, Today I talked with Margot about it, and she said something like, I sometimes say you have to go down to the level of your reader, and take your reader along through your storyline, and not too quickly jump into conclusions. Can we change anything about the topic later on if we find something should be different? Yes. Okay, this is nice. Because proposals are not set in stone. So to the best of your ability, let's assume that you submit in February. To the best of your ability, you make a proposal you think makes sense. But then actually after the field trip, you get into the application company, you start working, and suddenly different things pop up, are more important. Then yes, you leave your proposal behind and you work with what's going on in practice. Yeah? But your proposal is your preparation. You have to think things through already in advance. You have to raise some critical questions in advance to be properly prepared. Because the idea is that when you come back from the field trip, your proposal is already passed. That's now what I assume in my whole story. You basically roll up your sleeves, you get your proposal, and day 2, you just start executing what you thought of. Yeah? So that's the idea of the proposal. But yes, we cannot capture the complete reality in a proposal, so if something else pops up while you're doing your research, you have to change it. What if we are unsure about our application company? What do you mean with unsure?
It could be like which company we're going to, what type of work they're doing. So if we think we might be doing a certain work, or we might be doing something totally different, the proposal might look different.
Yes. But, so you mean really at the start of the process?
Yeah, because I'm thinking of a few different companies, and I haven't committed to which one yet. And
Yeah.
I think if I go with one, I want this sort of proposal and this sort of
Yeah.
project, but if I go with another, I want something different.
My advice is always not to bet on one horse. So contact them, all four of them. Because you never know in advance. Once you sit with people and have your first orientational talk, then it becomes, you know, you get a feeling like this is really what I want, or you know, they're too linear, they expect me completely different from me. What I also learned already in all the previous years is that sometimes you have a hero application company. Once I had a student who really wanted to be at a certain, it was a marketing, branding company in Belgium. He put a lot of efforts to actually get there. And after a week he called me and said, Nicoline, this is awful. I hate it here. I'm only processing data. I want to leave. I said, leave now. And then he got, in the end, I think he also comes back in one of my slides. He worked via his father. He got into a hub for startups in the medical sector, so it was medical related, and he had a great time. And on paper, this was his hero, you know, application company, this was boring, whereas in the end the challenge at a maybe boring company was far more interesting. So that's why I say if you have already an idea about four, contact them all four, start talking with them, and then you learn, you know, what gives you the best opportunity, what's nice, what is really in line with Imagineering, what you would like to do.
That sounds good.
Yeah?
What would you recommend for thinking about the proposal? If the proposal that we write will be different depending on which company we go with?
Yeah, it depends on the challenge of the company, yes.
Yeah, so if we have to start a proposal like soon.
Yeah, you should start at least contacting potential application companies soon.
I see. So you think, when do you think you would recommend we start with a proposal?
If in the perfect world, you have an application company before Christmas holiday, and then after the Christmas holiday you have a month to write your proposal, because the first deadline was 2 February by heart.
Yeah.
Yes. So then you basically have a month. That is still rather tight, but that would, if you have your application company before, it would be absolutely great.
I see.
Yeah.
So find the company for sure.
Yeah.
And then do
Start today, and we will talk about it later also today, to brainstorm a little bit. Also your reflective group meetings you can use for this. So what kind of applications company, how do I approach them? Because if you approach them with complex challenges and complexity science, and they don't understand what you're talking about, so how do you make the first contact? How do you, I always advise to at least have some ideas saying, hey, I'm an Imagineering student, I'm interested, I think I can be beneficial for your company because, that you already do some kind of proposal, you know, I've seen your companies working on this, and this is what I could, yes. Because then it's not, oh, do you have an assignment for me, it's very, but then you already stand out like, hey, this person already has an idea, well, maybe I never thought of it, interesting, maybe. So that's always my advice. What exactly is expected? That's a broad question.
I think we've addressed it.
Okay. What level of detail? The proposal is in total 3,000 words. So it's very succinct. To the point. Highly informative reading, yeah? So you cannot dwell, etc. There are basically 3 chapters, I will show you. So each chapter is 1,000, 1,500 words. Yeah, so it's short.
This is more about structure as well. So it's like, I didn't know how to frame it, but format and idea about paragraph titles. Like, do we have, like for example, with our literature review, we have the introduction, but and a proposal. Do we have, I don't know, like challenges? What are So these.
So it relates also to this, and I give you a structure.
Yeah,
yes,
the
I
big
give you a clear
titles.
structure. I even give you some subtitles.
Okay.
Yes. Because you also have to say something about the significance of the study and the limitations and these kind of things. Yeah, you get that from me. Yes.
This was almost like literary. Literary is also experienced.
Yeah, so a literature review assignment that I gave you, right, it's an assignment, it's also a writing exercise. I give you quite a platform, you know, to develop your writing. Synthesis, topic sentences, controlling ideas, have a thesis statement, you know, have a clear body, it's to practice. So you see here the literature review chapter in your proposal is far more succinct. Because the whole proposal is 3,000 words. Yeah.
Question, I already contacted a potential application company and now they are waiting for me to send them an email on like my availability and what might be interested for me to work on and all these things. But I can't really wait for the proposal. I need to send it now, right?
Yeah, because you write a proposal, basically when you agree with the application company, we're going to work together.
Oh.
Yeah? So you first have to go through the process of contacting potential application companies, have these orientational talks, etc. And we say, yes, we're going to work together, then you actually can start with your proposal. The reason why I start so early with the classes in Block 2 is to kind of ignite this, to say, okay, go out, contact application companies, you know, now it's the time, don't postpone. Yeah? And to ensure that before Christmas holiday you know everything about the proposal, so you have all the tools, you know, to write it. So you get this from me. Yes, I give you that. Can I connect a proposal with another project, such as the field trip as the prior study case? I don't understand the last part.
Yes, for this, actually I have get my application company. This may be about a leisure destination something, and I think it's correlated with the field trip because it's also about a leisure destination.
Yeah.
So is it possible to make in the proposal like have a prior study?
Yes.
Field trip?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I would absolutely do that if you have an opportunity for that. That would be interesting, and you could already even use the field trip as a, you know, an opportunity to gather some data or something like that. So if there is an opportunity, yes. Also, for application companies, think about the Creativity World Forum or the Liberation Day or the Hackathon. You meet so many people. Now for the hackathon we have we have the municipality as a client, but last year you saw we had these, I showed you the clip, with 5 or 6 different clients. Some students followed up, and actually they became the application company. So be also clever in all the connections, you know, you generate through this course, because all these people are somehow interested already in Imagineering. Yeah, so you don't have to completely sell the whole story anymore. So yes, if you have an opportunity to combine it with the field trip or the case of the field trip, that would be excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Because I think the case is quite similar. How to attract people to such kind of destination. So
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it's possible.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Do I need to interview application before make it? Well, I think I answered that question. So it's also for your proposal. It's impossible to write a proposal on how to ignite certain transformations without having any contact with the application company. You cannot think that through behind your desk. You have to go there, you have to talk to some people to actually make the right proposal and to design it in the right way. So yes, you have to already interview people or have talks with them as input for your proposal.
But we can at least tell them like, we will submit you a proposal once we want to start, or like how do we use the proposal, when do we use it? If we already contacted the application company and they agreed on for having us in there, like to try something out.
Yeah, so that's step 1. And step 2 is you have to write a proposal. So you have to do an analysis, what's the challenge, what kind of transformation are they aiming at, how I'm going to design that. You cannot do that just behind your laptop. You have to talk with people. You have to maybe have some interviews with people in the application company to get some inputs. That's what I mean. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is you submit your proposal. And then step 4 is after the field trip you roll up your sleeves and you execute what you've basically designed.
Okay.
Yeah?
But the proposal we will give it to the application company.
Yes, yes, yes. I would do so, yeah, absolutely.
So before we submit it to you, is there any, like, the application company have agreed with the proposal or not?
Yeah, they should have, not a formal proposal, but they should have agreed we want to work with you. Yes.
Yes, that one, but what we want to work with them, should we just inform them before we submit the proposal?
Yeah, but they don't formally have to approve your proposal.
Oh,
Yeah, so, because my experience is that we also look at the rigorousness of the whole proposal. Is it properly written? Is it well argued? Is it proper theoretical perspective? Is the literature review well written? An application company is only interested in what you can do for them. So they are less interested in the whole substantiation, you know, they just want you to start and do something. You know. So you don't need the formal approval of the proposal you submit from your application company, but they should, of course, you should of course agree with them, you know, what you're going to mean for them. Yeah?
So it sounds like a micro research proposal, so like we want to address the company, so like, yeah, that's the general thing we can do, and we know a little bit you're doing this, and we could do something.
Yeah.
So a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for the first contact, I would absolutely advise that, because if you just ask an open question, hey, do you have an assignment for me? Then maybe you end up processing data as my previous student, and that's not all we want. Yeah. Can I make it in a fancy design? Yes, I have some examples here already from previous years. You see that some make a really fancy design out of it. We remain Imagineers, so we are playful. We also use visuals, etc. So even though the rigorousness has to meet certain rules, it doesn't mean that it has to be boring and abstract, etc. We are Imagineers, we talk as Imagineers. Yeah. Can I make it fancy design or just the usual type of thesis? I answered that. An effective recommended way of doing research. What is meant with that?
I didn't know it was before the application company, so I thought it's like research the company and then write it.
Yeah, so basically we tackled that question already. Good. Basic goal of the research proposal, well, yeah, the transformation that you want to ignite at a certain application company based on the challenge that they have. Academic standards or RP, what's RP?
Research purpose.
So, yeah, academic standards in the sense that what we discussed in the literature review. So proper APA, you know, you have to...
So like how much theories do we need to take? Theories.
I don't think it's a lot, it's 3,000 with your interpretation.
Yeah.
So I think
So it's more practical.
Yeah, but you do write a literature review because you have to always connect your research to the current body of knowledge. That is what you always do, to kind of connect it or to be inspired or etc. But we do, it's not a fundamental research. We do applied research
it's a 3,000 words.
for the proposal.
And the last one, I understand now.
Okay, what's
Literature review.
Okay, no, it doesn't have to be the same topic. No. Because it depends, of course, on the challenge, you know, of the application company. Okay, well, this is good. This was insightful. And I'm also happy because it helped to tackle already, you know, a lot of questions. Well, let's go back to Imagineering research. I already talked with you about Imagineering research, yeah? So just to refresh your memories a little bit. First, my question to you, do you still remember some requirements that we discussed about typical Imagineering research?
There must be a link to Imagineering.
Yes, but that's for me too broad.
So finding your gap in existing research and building on it or constructively.
Yeah, but that can be any research. Yeah? So what is typical for Imagineering research?
maybe like
Yeah, in what way?
Yeah, because usually the usual research is just a written research or quantitative research
Yeah.
that you have to count this and this using a formula and like that. But in imagery research, I think it's more qualitative.
Absolutely.
That
Yes.
you can maybe dig more in person and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, one of the requirements is what we said, but maybe it's good to also look at, you know, my lecture on what's Imagineering research I did with you in block 1. One of the things is that you are allowed to use mixed methods, so you basically can use a quantitative part, but we say Imagineering research is co-creativity, you know, it's mobilizing stakeholders. So it's impossible to only do quantitative research because Imagineers want to generate interventions, you know, a certain disruption, that something is going on. You cannot do that via statistics. So it could be that you say, well, there is a part I want to do via statistics, but then it always has to be mixed methods. Yeah? It has to have a qualitative part. I basically say it's qualitative research. Yeah, it is. It's co-creative. You include voices, etc. It's applied research, so I think that's also important to bear in mind. So applied research is of course always, it's practice oriented. Yes, we do research, yes, we need to generate certain insights, but not for the body of knowledge, but to actually help this practical situation, you know, to move forward, and the people in it. So it's applied. That does not mean that there is no insight you need to generate. So if you look at applied research, you want to have a certain understanding so you can improve practices. If we were purely consultants, I would say you already have a method that works, you come in, you do some workshops and you focus on improving the practices. With Imagineering research, we say, well, we are a little bit more humble. We first want to fully understand generate an understanding of the current situation or the current social construct or what's currently going on, to be able to actually design interventions that is very applicable for this context. So you always have a knowledge part and you have a practical part in Imagineering research. Does that make sense? Okay. Remember this one?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is more traditional research. And these are the principles of Imagineering research. Yeah? So, for example, we focus not on to predict something, but we focus on to be generative. Yeah? We don't focus on discovery, but we focus on creation. Yeah? We say we don't focus on the end product, but we focus on the process. Yeah? We say not what's the best method, but what's most suitable in this context. We say the researcher and the researched are not disconnected, because the moment you step in and you ask a question, you already have an impact in Imagineering research. And so they collaborate. So it might be good to have a look again at this. Because the thing is that if you approach an application company, sometimes the dominant understanding about the word research is more the classical, traditional research. So maybe you should not even mention research, but you say, hey, I have to do an Imagineering project. Because if you say research, people have immediately different kind of associations. And then in your conversations, you can of course be more clear what you're going to do, but that could be an advice. Yeah?
Instead of you doing research.
Yeah, so not saying application, I have to do research.
It's like I'm going to check with you.
Yeah. What I always say, I relate to it as a research-based Imagineering project, because you do an Imagineering project, but we not just go in with our post-its, you know, and our create, but we first learn, you know, generate this insight about the social construct and use that as an input to build our interventions. So that's why I always say it's a research-based Imagineering project, but maybe for your first contact you just say, I have to do my master in Imagineering, and I have to do a final project. And I work, and I blah, blah, blah. So the purpose, here we get also to the requirements, is we do it in a co-creative way. We don't focus on solutions, we focus on this evolution. Yeah, so sometimes we cannot fully promise what we actually will deliver, but that's why I say it's always good to talk with your application companies about what kind of transformation are you aiming at. That's the dot on the horizon, that's the envision direction. You cannot promise that by your work in 3 months you will actually ignite the transformation, but what you can promise is we will take the first steps towards that direction. And we do it in this way, so we appeal to the imagination of people, we use narratives, etc. We focus on small interventions. Of course, in the whole course of block 2 and 3 I will share many papers with you, and I have some really nice examples of papers that actually had 5 or 6 small interventions in a row, and worked on that instead of having one intervention. And what we of course want is we want to enable others to become co-designers, because you will step out of the process. And then you want the people to continue the work you've started. So that means, and that's also why I find it sometimes difficult to only talk about Imagineering research, for us, and I prefer a research-based Imagineering project, because you're not only the researcher, you have 3 roles in this whole project. Yes, you are a researcher because you have to generate data and analyze and interpret it in a systematic way. Yeah? But you're also a co-creative catalyst. You're also a designer. Yes? So in the whole project, it's also not now I'm the researcher, now I'm the designer. The way you design your interventions has basically is a combination of the 3. Yeah? So these are the 3 roles that you have in the whole project. Yeah. So, what can you think of? Well, Imagineering research you can structure, to go to structure. You can structure it in inspiration, ideation, implementation. I think by now these phases are familiar. What we say is you have to at least get into the ideation phase, because implementation is not always possible because the time is so short. So that's why we have the business inspiration report, where you can give all kinds of recommendations what they should do next. Yeah. But, and so think of this, I talked about this before, so this is your proposal phase. You include already some people from your application company. Then you go to work with them in a co-creative way. Here you step out of the process, but you leave your business inspiration report and your creative tension engine behind. And then they should continue the work you've done. You could also structure it in a more of a design thinking approach. Some students do that. They have a challenge. They have a challenge of an application company in which they really want to get to a prototype, for example. You could also think of, I already mentioned it, the research as intervention. So you have all these small interventions in a row. To give you an example, that's a paper I will give you also throughout this course, was in the municipality of Etteleur. It's an adjacent municipality from Breda. And basically the municipality did rather well. You know, they score well in the surveys, and there were no real problems. The interesting thing was, however, is that they had a budget, financial budget for innovation, and nobody applied for that. So that budget kind of stayed. And what the student did was, that made him curious and said, okay, maybe we should find a way to ignite this innovation capacity in the municipality of Etteleur. So he did interviews with people to pick their brain about how do you think about innovation. And it turned out that people associated predominantly with technological innovation, not with process innovation. Yeah? So that was already very interesting. So then he thought, okay, how can I change people's mindset about that? That it's not only about the technological part. So he went to Surplus, it's another example I will mention a lot. Surplus is a big health care organization in the Netherlands. They were part of a project, a national project, from rules to relations, because in the healthcare it's full of rules all the nurses, etc., have all kinds of rules that they need to meet and adhere to, whereas in the healthcare it's also about the relationships you have, you know, with your clients. So Surplus made really a transformative change. So what he did is he went with his people from the municipality to Surplus to kind of be inspired about their work and to ask all kinds of appreciative questions how they've done it. So that was an intervention. Then people had to blog about it. And then they made, a cover story about how could you apply what we have learned now from the process innovations to Atelier. And then he did interviews again, and then he saw that the mindset really shifted, that people had different kind of ideas. And then they developed something for Atelier, it's the chair. And the chair is a way to collect stories in the municipality from all kinds of stakeholders about process innovation and the success of it, to kind of keep people inspired, you know what. So he had 5 or 6 interventions in a row, yeah? And from every intervention he learned something, and it was the input for the next intervention he designed. And then he learned something from that, content and process-wise, and then he used it to design the next intervention, yeah? So then research and intervention come together, because you do an intervention but immediately you learn from it. Yeah. Whereas some students also choose to do first more a traditional research, have interviews, etc., and then have an intervention and say something about it. Yeah, so that is what the two pictures kind of express. Yeah. And this choice highly depends on the application company, what's possible. You could also think of more a participatory action research oriented design. And so participatory action research is predominantly, but you see different kind of applications, but predominantly about marginalized groups. You give them a voice, for example, and include them as co-researchers in your research. So I think that also is a really nice design that you can use in Imagineering research. It's focused on transformation, it's focused on empowerment, it's focused on doing it in a co-creative way. So, some features, co-creative, participatory, although to me the two things are very closely related. And it's always focused on innovation, transformations. Yes? Is it time for a short break? Yeah? Yeah. And then I will talk with you, do an exercise about application companies. Yeah? Short break for coffee?
You're not nice because I promised my friends companies to deliver the tool for new vision. And since it's not going to be possible to be there, I'm thinking of something virtual and practical. My first approach was really bad. I did simple questions. What's your vision now? Who is on board of your vision? Something like that, and they only thought about it. And they say, one says it's perfect, and the other one says, my vision is to have 5,000 clients in this period. And it's not a vision. And without products, he has no vision. Because his vision is to sell this to 5,000 clients. Okay. So now, I'm thinking of a tool, maybe to ignite something, but sending, I don't know, pictures of the present, of what does this means for you, your company, this triangle, this dog,
But you want to,
black cauliflower.
but you want to mission, right?
Sorry?
So the address to the issue, they don't want to have a mission.
They don't have vision. This practical.
Yeah.
practical,
Just bottom line.
and we can deliver by email,
And what does he want out of it?
new vision.
New vision.
They are on board,
Okay.
but one says it's perfect,
Mm.
but I'm on board. The other, of course, is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are like,
Yeah.
yes, one of them is already kind of millionaire, and the other one has one year in market.
It's like an old company.
One is 5 years, but his business is unique. He makes stuff like wood or any other company needs. And he's designer, he's art designer, 3D designer. So if you want to sell books in another shape, he develops that. Yes, everything. He made me a stand for explanation myself, and then you can just switch the text. Smart. He does for brands.
Shall I put it on the screen?
He's the this company is on board. He thinks vision is perfect. Yeah, but he's willing
I'm
to
always
try the approach for the future to come. Also
What is
this
the company? What is the company?
Now
What is the company?
Lima makers.
But do you have a storyline for your literature?
Space is really nice.
You have.
And
You
he
know
has,
what's the structure of your literature? What you
Yeah,
want to
but
say?
then when I wanna
Maybe you want to switch spots.
Yeah?
No, it's just going to share. Should we switch?
like
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, but what can help if you have your storyline?
Oh, okay.
No,
Oh, let's do it on the board.
So did I. It's too much.
So, do you know what your overall position was, your thesis statement?
yeah,
Is
it's
it?
about the beginning of the
Yes. What is that?
how much marginalized group
it's
wants
delicious.
A lot of breakfast.
Yeah.
and how much I don't have coach readings.
Yeah.
And
Check.
like
Oh.
to which level it is.
Yeah. And as it's true, you know, it's more complex than that, but yeah,
But my throat
Okay.
doesn't
So you have some points you want to make.
So, yeah, last time we discussed without that will
I'm gonna do nice tea.
address one topic
Oh,
about
what?
how much the companies are really like when
Huge
you
amount of
approach to what level they are really participating. So,
You can check the
Level,
Insta,
yes.
and there's
Point two.
but with this one,
I think it's good.
it doesn't need to be only marginalized.
So I want
It's
to
about the organization, how much do they really
maybe 3
make
steps
people participate
to
Yeah. Is
send,
this part of this or is it the
answer,
second
send,
part?
answer,
This
and
one is
finish. This is your new
I want
vision.
to talk about marginalized.
And
Yeah.
you make it.
But
Yeah, but that's the thing, like-
also wasn't only about.
The vision
No, but
is normally the best
the
one.
articles for
Once you do
now,
it
I will
yourself,
get to the
like it's good to give
articles.
them some
For
tools
now,
for
I want
them
to
to
know
do it.
what is your
If
vision
you
and
and
the structure
this
of the storyline
CEO
of the
guy,
paper.
normally
And what is the structure? To show you how you could integrate the articles.
Yes.
Maybe there are 2 partners, maybe send the to each.
Yeah, so in the
Make
introduction, I wanted to
between them.
define what is
So-
I don't know how, I mean, I have the theory and the,
Yeah, there's the introduction.
And then
of the
there's a
points.
question
Yeah.
about, like
in
in
theory,
this, I find
there
that
has to be a
how much
purpose,
really are they
principles,
included, are they willing to be included, so.
It have a different paragraph, that each paragraph or each section
those are
addresses
the
a
steps,
certain
but how,
Yeah, so
issue.
this is
instead of sending
about,
theory, how can I ignite in them,
yeah, one is
without
about
being with them?
the companies and how much they are willing to
difficult.
The question
make
of
them
Maria.
You're familiar.
So the level of participation and how it goes always to experts
Yeah.
and the limitation of like frameworks and rules within the
Yeah.
company.
Yeah?
And the second one is about the marginalized community and
I was
their
thinking
mindset
about
before going to participate. Are
Yeah.
they willing? And if
Shadows
they are
of
willing,
things.
Oh, yeah.
or
Yeah.
maybe even here, how it affects them.
which one of these shadows is your company now? Which, how will it be
but then you
in the future? Or something else, send it back.
And yeah, so
What
I
does it
think
mean to
that
you?
there is
But
another
but then,
Yeah.
So templates.
Yeah.
templates, yes.
So you have clear, of course you
I
have
think
an
that if they
introduction.
cover the
The
three
point
Ps,
is that this
purpose,
dilemma we need to do
principles
further
and
research
promises.
because if we look at the company
Okay.
perspective,
So
this
three
is going on.
exercises.
You look at the marginalized
Yeah,
community
good.
perspective, this is going on and that's the gap. And now it's make it
I
very short.
was
Yeah.
thinking only in this.
So what you do
Zulu
now, if you have a lot of articles, you don't know how
Rorschach
to
test
fit them,
with
you say, okay, the company
With the
perspective, that part.
psychologists show you shadow of anything or a drawing and they say, what do you see here?
Also Gestalt.
The
And
Rorschach
then you
test.
select which
Which
articles
Gestalt
at
is
least
German.
say something about
It's
that.
German.
Yeah.
And then you
Then
ask
it's
yourself, in what way do they agree?
The test. There you
And what way do
Wait a
they
minute, is
differ?
that the same figure?
Right.
Maybe it's German.
And then you have
So no,
this
this, maybe this, oh, it's
So
different.
this is, you want to make this
Something,
point.
what's used in
That, you know,
psychotherapy is
the-
called Gestalt.
There is some
It's
critique
like when
on this
someone shows you
level of
research as
participation due to all kinds of
silhouettes,
reasons.
and
So
you're
you
supposed to
look
say what
at
you see.
in what way,
That's- maybe
who
that's-
agrees with that? You know,
Yes.
and what do they say about
Maybe
it?
it's
Do
Rorschach
other
test.
people say the same?
Rorschach is the last
Or do
name
they
of
say
the guy
something
that
different, they
invented.
add on
Oh, yeah.
it, or they have a different
Maybe
focus?
Maybe
And
it's
then you
Russian
can take
German.
it back to
Russian
yourself.
German.
So,
Yes.
what is
That's
your...
the only tool I have. What else?
Yeah,
That could put help for.
so if you just
For the
focus, try to
present
filter,
and
okay, which article set, and you don't have to use the whole article.
What
So
are
if
the
you have an
tools?
article,
What should I
one section
send
is
them?
about this.
So they.
It's even fine, you know, the whole doesn't have to be the whole article about it. So it could be that the same article can be used both for this section and for this section. Because the article has to address both.
And here I can also talk about like the way they used for different marginalized
Yes.
groups and
So you say, okay, if you look at the literature, the different ways, you know, because Johnson does this, Smith says
I indicate
that,
your vision, I mean like,
they
make it
they
more.
are similar in the way that, however, Smith says blah blah blah. If I relate that, you know, to my point of view, then we can draw the conclusion.
Yeah. Oh no.
So I think if you get lost in your literature, pinpoint what you want to say,
Through me.
then make it make just a little, you can really make a matrix.
Doesn't exist. He does have.
And then not the extensive one that we already discussed, but a very
Is it
on this
for
particular
their
topic.
own use, or is it
What
for
do they
their
say? What do they
employees
agree? What do
and
they say the same?
branding? You
And what
know,
do
is
they
it
say
public or
different?
private?
And what's my
Division,
position? How do I feel about that?
Should go
But
over
this,
for both.
uh,
According to the literature,
like
ignite in them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and also people
Yeah.
related
Yeah, and it might even people referring to both, and then you use them for both sections.
I guess we could do a lot of the stuff we've done in class, like the questions that we have. I like the one that was the why, like you keep going down all
either
those different,
addressing
why you're coming,
Yeah.
either
why I wanna
addressing
make money, why.
and I couldn't know
For
what
the
to do.
5,000 clients wanna know
Because
you
you
that,
relate
right?
it. They don't have to relate it, but you say, hey,
So I don't know, I
the
mean,
two
yeah,
sides
for
of
the
this.
5,000 clients person,
And it's
think
interesting,
there's
you have
anything
some
else?
office who only
Is
talk
there-
about one side.
I
or
want them to.
You are,
He wants to earn money.
your
I feel
paper
like
is the fact that
But his vision is different than. I don't want any dog in this city to starve.
okay.
Yeah.
I hope
Does he,
you can
does he
read
donate
it,
money to
because I
dogs
have
or something, or just like
No,
stuff?
for everybody.
He just, if you need food, I get you this food and I bring you.
Okay.
He delivers
I see.
any food. And he says, I want to deliver high, high nuts, expensive.
He doesn't want to. Yeah.
No, he said, this is my people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, It could be that then, that's something to dig into. Why, why have you chosen this, not other businesses? Why have you chosen food?
Everybody.
Why have you chosen this method of it?
Which one?
Yeah,
And the kind of.
yeah, the kind, like if he says something like, I want to target specific clients, then you can ask why. Like, if there's something, because I think if it's just, I want to make money, then it's not worth digging into.
Okay, ladies, shall we continue?
Yeah, it could be, yeah, it could be.
I told them this
just have it any.
Like and deeper and
Yeah, I think that's what I think that's what
Okay.
we could go if he wants to make the social good.
You're just stressed, right?
It'd be like 10% of profits
It's
go
not
towards.
stress, it's totally
Yes.
healthy.
I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
I want him to think about thinking of people.
Just his own profit.
Yes? Okay. So as I said, step one is thinking about application companies. And I think it's good to talk with each other a little bit about that. So yeah, you can do in groups of 3 or even in pairs, because we are with 6 people, so maybe it's also nice in pairs, but you can also do in group of 3s. I just want you to take the time now for the next 15 minutes to talk about it. And basically there are two questions. So if there's already, maybe in your group there's already someone in the process of getting an application company, and if not, then you know, what are possible application companies or dream application companies you would like to contact, because it's really important we start talking about this a lot, yeah, and also support each other in that. So the more we talk about it, the more we find the words and the ideas to be able to actually connect to people. So let's say 15 minutes, something like that, to discuss it with each other.
Because like my scholarship research have goals with other parts of the system, so it's kind of like they do innovation work, but our field is innovations, but they're kind of silent. The scholarship agriculture, works in that services, education, and drawing. So just like that, we have a lot of research, and we need to share it to the other organizations. And they
For
also
them
share
for like
the work that
they do in the building, but also
it's
for the
related to
field work that they do outside.
It's only related to your.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you wanted to
To get that with this proposal.
I think
every company can feel related to
that. I think so. Yeah. I think it's very departmentalized. So the transformation should be aimed at.
Actually, for
Sharing information and the best way to do it. So I wasn't sure yet. I just have
store, but I think they are fairly big, therefore they don't need me. Since I think so. No.
discuss with the
Study imaging campaign, because they have done that, they know better. So that I stay in
the campaign,
I couldn't connect with them, like, yeah,
we mixed
still,
with others.
still want to do such kind of
Then
work,
maybe the sharing
but now I love to do work in the relationship in the store, because it's fairly near.
or belonging
So I just have to walk.
the full group.
Again.
That'd be interesting. Maybe trying to build among all of them.
It's very, actually, it's not that difficult. What I've done is just come and say that,
Before.
okay, my name is.
But what is the challenge?
I don't have
The challenge is
but maybe that's before.
because it seems like
Yeah.
if you want to contact this person,
Yeah, because I think that's one
this
part.
and
is
this
that,
one will get
like a
this
fundamental
one,
problem
so
is how the
this
departments
one,
are so
so
separate. Even though they
you have
share
to
so much,
have
I think we do so
agreement
much more
with
together.
that person. If you get
They
the
work
right
so
person,
separately, so
you talk.
I would feel like
what
maybe
I
the best
say
case
is,
blue sky
okay,
transformation
I've
is
heard
that
an
they
imagery,
really
it's
are fully
embedded,
integrated.
it's
At least they
so
feel that way, or they feel like they have a
what
strong
makes it.
support system.
It's
where
about
they can reach out to
imagination and
each other all the
engineering,
time.
so what is your
That'd be
vision?
very
I will help you to
Yeah.
make that. Oh, I have a vision with this, like this, and that. Yes, yes,
My
yes.
transformation should be
Just like
that.
Um,
Maybe to find the real problem is
two
what is
ideas.
first
One
part.
is
You have the tip of the
that is
iceberg.
called
Yeah,
blending.
yeah,
It's
yeah. She kind of was starting to mention about it a bit, but we only talked about Heinrich was saying that they all have their own, evaluations, and so it's hard to work together because they say, I'm not, being graded on
So,
I'm graded on my
they're
boss.
quite.
You know, yeah, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So I feel like,
It is,
yeah,
they
I
already
feel like
have
that's
their
the
own
problem, is like
website and they
how they're
have
evaluated
registered.
and their performance
But now,
reviews.
the thing is, they already have
That
some
determines what they
clothing,
put effort into.
like, need to, just need support of the clothing.
Getting results, if we got those people together, we are
Because they
getting
are really
results.
young, so
So they can expect
they
And
won't
love you,
implement
and then
their
you're a catalyst for
transformation.
friendship and
And
collaboration.
not just a clothing,
Yeah.
but probably like a
Yes,
lifestyle.
I hear this a
And
lot.
like
I'm
the
not,
whole customer
I'm
journey.
not being paid for this. I'm
Yeah,
not ready for
yeah,
it.
yeah,
If it's in home,
Yeah, it's huge.
I
That's
know.
that's your inner motivation.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
what is
But
the
not the money or something.
Yeah.
That's good, I guess. I think that's true. I feel like there should
it's
be.
good. Yeah, it's very
It's
easy.
maybe not a, I think there are some
And
people who
another
really
one
want
is
to, like,
all the way
I
from
want to get paid, I don't
us.
care about this job, you know? So, but I think, I feel that there are enough people
Yeah,
that are the
yeah.
opposite. That it's worth, you know, maybe 10% don't care, but if the other 90% care about it, then I think it'll work.
Because if you talk about
the guy
like
in his still told me that
how to
if
say,
you do,
like,
if you give a good example,
this one
suddenly the other join. It's
But I
90%
really
super
wanted to,
nice. 50
like,
super nice.
it's
It's
a
on
lot of
Grow
strategies to
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to put this big
think,
seed.
this way, but this way I find,
So,
yeah,
So that's fine.
this one is kind of like, Salisbury is kind of like transformation, you know, it's like in-house.
Small companies, chocolate
Yeah.
or beer or coffee here in Vera. Because I have contact with also.
With your mom, you can do it more.
Yeah.
It's small Japanese displays.
And it's
Those things because people are
yeah, impossible to give
for what to grow.
monster.
And also have a space because they have the stores. I'm thinking of stores, maybe more than if I want to.
No, you should do it.
Maybe two. Now one,
Yeah,
then if I have
and they
to
only
start
talk
time,
about they don't want social media.
I'm asking what which are the challenges. I can guess they want to grow, but they're thinking about it and then the coffee for
Or you're screwed.
Tuesdays before deadline.
arts for coffee for
Transformation, do you feel like we have the idea they talked about what the
Working your lab.
Not yet.
I have ideas.
Do all the
If
papers. Just keep everything in the
nice experience. Everything is everywhere and it's not
So yeah,
nice. I need to walk up and say it's overwhelming. Maybe that.
But the thing is
If
that
I
they
have to
have
put it in a
now in
table.
their strategy, they are asked to be more
I don't think they
They
think
are
about it.
stupid.
Yeah.
It's in their strategy now.
Or just
But
a
still,
couple
they are
ideas so they
working on
can
innovation.
think.
But one of the problems
For real?
and the result was
Feel
this
like you're doing it
is
in
the changes in organizations.
And then you see something else,
Staff.
so many people, but there are too many people come back.
I thought it was just when you build a store, just
They go to another one because it's
But I thought
it's special for experience.
Yeah,
I was really surprised.
Experience only
But
for customers.
2 or 3 are working as
Also in the coffee,
And they
coffee
imagine
place,
But
you can always alone.
one of the things is that when you talk about
Changing the, because it's like, oh, I saw the video for that. I said, oh, let's do that. But what's behind it? And so I have the next appointment.
that's good.
So when I see one store that's
Okay, and
in time for it, because 3 months seeing these things,
to our own innovation.
willing
but
to
yeah.
be recorded, the work,
one of the challenges
workers,
I saw is that not
their
everyone
paid hours,
has a
Yeah,
they,
mindset.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yes.
So
So,
only
yeah,
2 or
and
3 from
who is
100.
willing to do,
And I
because
think,
I'm going to put effort.
So that
If I don't
Yeah,
feel it back,
that's
then
good.
the second
I'm a
one
bit disappointed.
is I can be working with them on
That sounds good, yeah,
So
make sure that
previous
they have the
phase.
resources first and
Yes.
time, you know.
I'm not sure.
I put everything else maybe, or maybe they put a copy.
Because
Yes.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
you
a
have,
previous phase with a lot, and then we go to the
so,
feature.
Save, we have Save the Children
Yeah, sounds good.
International.
Yes,
And
but
then
first,
Our country
and then-
offices.
and then I choose.
I see, I see.
We have
Yeah, that's
29
nice.
SC
And you?
members.
So I didn't push.
Oh, Save the
Yeah.
Children. So
So I'm gonna do it
members are
after.
also donors,
But,
and
well,
here it's a
I'm kind of
member.
a bit of
The country office, so they don't have like direct implementation
Let's walk with some
of projects.
Here.
Here, they only have
Yeah,
two
have
projects.
Okay.
One is Team Up and one is Speaking Up.
Okay. And yeah, I
And
don't really want to
these
go
are the
to
only two
design
projects they
companies
have
to
here.
filmmakers.
And one of
Yeah,
their,
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it says what
Yeah,
when it comes to
like
make,
color
Yeah,
also.
one of
Yeah.
the criteria is to make it
Yeah, if we go
sustainable.
into logistics and.
So not only to be implemented in one place, but
They
to
already
also
Yeah, they're great.
make it used.
Yeah, they're great, yeah, and maybe I could help them to bring
And I'm not sure
creativity
how I
into
feel about
organization
this
development.
because I know like in
Debate
different
for
contexts,
creating
different
culture,
cultures,
well,
everyone
yeah,
is gonna
and
be
a different
different.
dimension of creativity.
So you can't really,
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, and I'd love to.
one project can't really work in different
That's
places.
totally.
Can I
But
ask
maybe it's also a
if you
challenge
have
to
to
work
work on
with different country
a
offices
good
and try
advice
to find the
send
patterns and
you
try to
present
know
the
the projects
Yeah, that's
a lot.
yeah.
So because they think
yeah, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not the
Yeah,
only
it's
one
in some
maybe.
cases.
It just, it makes something that you feel confident with and just, any company here you feel real interested in.
Drawing, they maybe to have meeting after
You are
your
just
material review.
information
Yes,
in
it's
there
there.
from
Because sometimes they receive the communication.
I just would love to hear.
They say, oh, you got the budget to hire this person,
Yeah.
and you see what the council,
What should I
and it's like
write?
2 weeks later, they die.
They want to know what
Yes.
and that's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
what
They
I'm
take
passionate about. Is working with the integration between refugees and local community here. And I think
Yes, it's
I
important
think
to see.
save the children,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yes,
so
although they live about
municipalities, or
this is the paper.
I'm not sure, but
We
I
are
find
going
a
to
very big gap between, they have a great system for refugees, but still there's a difference. I noticed there's a big
It
gap
would be
between
nice if
situation.
we have records.
So because a refugee comes, he starts learning the language. He goes to integration workshops,
Do you have
but it's given by the municipality, so he's not really integrating with the society. And he needs to study for 1 year or 2 years. And within this school, he only make
Yeah, it's like creating tension
because he's not
Yeah, but it will
introduced
really
to it.
to make it really unique, because
And
one
he
of those
doesn't
great
know the
examples
language,
of
so he can't really,
it's all kind of
yeah. So I
yeah,
think
okay, but
there's
it
a lot
would never
missing
drive
out
me,
there.
but if someone
And I
comes
think
with
this
some
kind of things
red bean
create
production,
tension,
yeah,
because you
it's kind
start
of something, you know,
only
it's
spending
little,
your time with
like
your
this little,
community and
so
so it kind
group
of
rise, maybe
make
only
it
will
go
understand, but it will
the higher
mean something
impact
to us
than
as a company.
So something really inspiring.
Yeah,
It's
it's
different.
very, yeah.
Just say yes to the most.
Probably that's why this would be possible for creating it. And it's probably more professional people that like something to relate to.
Yes,
You're
yes,
creative
yes,
and not
with children topic
can have also if you imagine to take this metaphor and go to the
Similarly,
wrong
could
Yeah.
do that abstract.
yeah.
For this, you should choose, but it's good to work.
Yeah, but it's really good. Yeah.
It's a good,
Yeah, but it's-
will, and you can choose which one in the way.
Creative people. Some egos.
Yeah, like, yeah, there was some work like some creative, and they had sort of, it was, so when you create creative monster, and it was such a mess, because we were like 6 guys, and they were all so, it was kind of, really kept fighting about like,
I get into force.
Okay.
I know what will happen.
It depends
I get into force.
yeah, that's also fun.
You know,
Or some CEOs, yeah, well, all this prediction on inflation. everything.
Okay, I'm curious what you discussed. So I'm curious about two things. So from each group I would like to hear at least one example, but also did it spark new questions, etc. Yeah, so I want to kind of have a little bit of a dialogue about it. Shall I start with the three of you? So one example, you say, okay, we want to share that of a possible application company, or maybe one of you are already in a process.
I can start. For me, it was a challenge in a municipality. They have an innovation department, and they said they have a lot of good research, but the other departments are very siloed and separate. And so the challenge is to get the information, the research they have, to share to the other departments, and not just to share, but maybe to actually try and use it.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that right now it's a little challenging because of the way that they're evaluated is not necessarily on using the innovation techniques or something. It's based on their kind of hard metrics. So
Yeah.
it's, they don't really have the incentives to try something new or risky.
Yeah.
So what we were discussing was trying to maybe first break down the walls of those departments and focus on the community first and bring people together as a starting point, and then maybe go from there towards sharing the information and seeing how we can connect and
Yes.
do
Yes.
something in that direction.
And is this already a clear? Is this a particular municipality, or was this in general?
No, it's the municipality of Limburg.
Of
Limburg?
Limburg.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Maastricht.
Limburg.
Southeast.
But the province.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, province. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Really nice. Relates a bit to what I explained earlier of the municipality in Etteleur. I think in many governmental contexts they kind of face this challenge. On the one hand, it should be more innovative, but then you have all these islands,
Yeah.
and you have blue people, as we sometimes say. We say, okay, what cost it? You know, what's the how much money,
Yeah.
etc. And as you said, there are sometimes assessment criteria that people have to adhere to, whereas would-be apps, I think that has huge potential. Yeah, it's nice. Cool. Example from your side.
I already talked to Save the Children, and I thought it's gonna be a small organization here because it's a member office and not the country office. But it turns out they are 100 employees.
So,
So
it's
they-
quite good, yeah.
Yeah, and in their strategy, they are asked to, in the strategy, they are asked to be more innovative. So they have it in their strategy now. But what I understood from the meeting is that 2 or 3 persons are working on innovation.
Yeah. So,
So
it's
it's not
related to what also Zoe said, have people actually ignite
Yeah, and-
the innovative capacity among people. They don't say, oh, it's for somebody else, not me. But that's, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, because I was talking to them and they said they were thinking about how can I work on something like related to their projects in innovation, under the innovation department, which is one person. But then I asked, that can also be a challenge for me to solve, like,
Yeah.
about how integrating that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's also what you will see, that maybe in your initial talks it's quite broad. And my mantra this blog will be focus, focus, focus. Kill your darlings. Better do something small, really good, than, do a lot, very superficial. But I'm happy with it because you also already were in contact with them. Yeah, that's. And then once you start the conversation, you get the ideas. And once you start into the proposal, you get even better ideas. So nice. What about the other 4?
Yeah, I have already got mine, but I think the most challenge is most of them not speaking English well. But what I will do, I think I will try to make it more visual, so not need more language.
Yeah, because you're now talking about a company or a context in Indonesia.
No,
Oh, because I was thinking about the field trip question, yeah.
Yes, because because I think there is a similarities because the application company here, I have talked with them and they have agreed to work with me, but they have a big vision. They are a store, Playmobil store in the station, but they have a vision to make like a theme park or such kind of play park in the station.
Yeah.
And that's about tourism, that's about leisure destination, and I think about the field trip in Indonesia.
Yeah.
I think there must be something that I can picture.
Oh, yeah.
with it here.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
see, yeah.
that's what I think in a proposal. Is it possible to make it in the proposal also, like the research here and combine it
Yeah, that's possible, yes. But you mean, so here the barrier is a bit that they have everything in Dutch.
Yes,
Yeah.
because when I talk to the owners like I talk with English and the owners like talk with his employee like in Dutch and the employee talk to me, so it's like a little bit problem.
Challenging, yeah.
It's challenging.
And also documents, etc. they have in Dutch. And
I don't know, because they are not that well managed now. They are just a small team with 6 persons.
Yeah.
And they have a very big dream, so
that
I'm
is
very
nice, that
happy
is,
to
yeah,
help
yeah. Well, I think Sandra already talked to you in Block 1, our alumni student
Yeah.
from last year. She's from Taiwan. And she was in the, did she talk about the project, application project?
She said something about like the first application company.
The
that
water
you were-
boards, the
Yeah,
Brabantse water.
yeah.
It was amazing because you have this Taiwanese girl in the Brabantse water, you know. They also sometimes don't speak English very well, and she went with these engineers, you know, understanding their passion for ensuring that the people in Brabant get clean water and all that. So she, maybe it's also nice to talk to Sandra, how she, because she also had this challenge on the one hand that it was not automatically in English and not everybody spoke English very well. But she somehow, did great things because of her, so it is possible, but it's challenge. I absolutely agree, yeah.
It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
It's language.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Were there questions that were now popping up in your discussion about the application companies?
About make a decision, because me and Troy they have a two option. I also in contact with another company,
Yeah.
and we plan a meeting next week. But I think it's good to bet on 2 horses.
Yeah, bet on multiple horses, and as I said, if it's possible before Christmas holiday, make a decision. Say this is the one I go for, and then you are on track. And even though if you don't are able to finalize the proposal in February, you still have March, but you're still on track for, to submit in June. So.
Is it possible to just do both and
No,
combine it in some?
it's too much.
It's too much.
It's really too much. Yeah, it's undoable. If I would say yes, do it, then I know I will delay you because it's impossible to finish that in, it has to be part of a cooperation, so it's the same project. Then it's possible. Then it's possible.
Okay, that's
But,
what I think.
yeah, but if you want to compare cases, it's too complex. You lack the time. Yeah.
Just the part of
Yeah.
cooperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's possible. Yeah. So talk a lot about this, talk with each other, talk in reflective groups about this, talk to your coach about it. Your coach plays a role in this. You can contact your coach and say, hey, I have some hero application companies I want to contact. Can you look at my email? Or because sometimes also in the past I help my students because the terminology was too abstract, for a first contact or for a first email. So start today to open up the conversation. Don't be scared to send an email because you might be rejected. That happens, yes. Well, better to quickly receive the rejections, to get to the right one than postpone the email, and then in December get rejected and then you have to find a new one. So rejection is not personal. They just don't, at the moment, don't have the time, etc. So just send 10 out at once. 6 people will reject, and a couple of people say, "Hey, interesting. Can you come for?" That's how you have to deal with it. if there's a really a hero application that you thought, oh, I would love to, then I would always advise first contact some other companies, because then you get some experience, you know, about contact them and what kind of feedback you get. And then when you feel more secure, contact the one you're really aiming at. Yeah.
Is it normal to feel anxious? Or
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like as if we're not sure what we're
Yes.
gonna do?
Yes. And that's why I said just send 5 out first.
No, I mean, even within the company, like, I was a bit scared about the 100 employee, because I thought,
Yeah.
I thought like it's a really big challenge, and it's my first attempt to do something, and it's also like internationally, and I have my background with Save the Children in Lebanon, and I really don't want to mess this up, because I don't know, like, I had this feeling of, oh my God, can I do it or not?
Yeah.
So
The thing is, we often start also with small interventions, so it doesn't mean that you immediately include all hundreds of people. And you will, of course, I said, generate an understanding what's going on and go where the energy is. So if you have a couple of people, you know, you feel there's already some potential, these are they become the ambassadors, you know, within the organization. So don't feel the pressure that automatically you have immediately include all the 100 people. Imagineers work with small interventions that kind of roll out.
Okay, and a second question, when we are discussing it with the application company, is there like certain black and white point that needs to be like very clear between me and them in order to make a decision upon that? Like, for example, I don't know, like how much involvement will I get, or
Yeah.
like, is there certain criteria that if they said no, you can't do this, I tell them no?
And not really, because it's not that it's not an internship, so it's not between March and June, that's your time to do it. And we see you as kind of a consultant, you work independently, it's not that you sit there every day from 9 to 5, you know, waiting for tasks to do. You are the one who doing the research and organize these interventions. I would always advise to be very clear when you are there, and also to be in the application company as much as possible, because otherwise people would say, who's that strange girl, you know, with her post-its, etc. So it's good to get to know people, to hear the informal talks, etc. So there are no obligations or rules concerning that than what you negotiate with your application company. I think the only thing that's important is that they support you. So that they don't put all kinds of restrictions on you. You're not allowed to talk to the employees, or you're not allowed, you know, to access strategic documents. If they don't give you that support, then...
So maybe it's good to mention it also in the email, like this is what I'll be needing,
yeah.
if they are open to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the main requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's very difficult as an Imagineer. If you don't get the commitment to what you're going to do, then you have to fight them almost, and then you cannot do your work basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, let's dive a little bit in the notion of proposal. I already mentioned before, so I think on a daily basis we do proposals to each other, or you write maybe in your professional or in your educational life you have written a project proposal or a sales proposal, or think of bids, you know, to get a conference or to get to be able to host the Olympic Games. These are all proposals, big proposals, but you can also have small proposals. I don't know, convincing your friends to eat at a certain restaurant or something like that. And you propose something and you want to persuade. So I think proposals are about persuading people. Yeah, I think that's the essence. What kind of proposal it is? You want to persuade somebody. And I think that's very important to bear in mind, that it also applies to the proposal for your research-based Imagineering project. You want to persuade people. You want to persuade people, your coaches, maybe an application company, in case alumni would read it, you know, or other teachers would read it. You want to persuade them that you thought this through, you know. Because with a proposal, it often also relates to money or resources, because you propose something so you get the budget. or you propose something so you get the hours or the time. And that's here as well, because if you're actually going to do your research-based imagineering project, it's very time-consuming. I mean, there's a lot of labor time put in that. So it has to be persuasive that the resources you put in then in this it applies your time, is really, you know, worth the effort and that you thought it through. So that's kind of the essence of proposals. And so a proposal, you identify a problem solution. Well, we talk more about challenges and transformations and innovation. We use kind of different kind of terminology. And you want to convince others through arguments to say, that's a good idea, you get my support. Let's do so. I'm with you, I'm in your corner, you convinced me. So that's also, please have that in mind when you write your research proposal. I also often say to my students, just as I misuse Lilia a lot, I say, okay, just think of Lilia sitting in front of you, you know, and you're going to explain to her what your project is about. Yeah, so the same what I said with the literature review, always write with your reader in mind. You need to somehow persuade somebody. I'm not going to do this exercise with you, but I've done it a couple of times. I asked, because I'm running out of time, so but I explained what I did, because every year the email room is an issue. So I would ask a couple of you pitch, you know, to the management team of the Academy for Leisure and Events, I have to say now, that we should get our own classroom here, because we have this classroom, but this is not our own classroom, and we have to share it. And I give you some time to prepare. I have a student pitching here, and then I give you roles, because I say somebody is the bookkeeper and thinks about the finance, and the other person is the facility, housing and facility people from bureaus, and other people are, some other student is the other students, you know, using the room. And then you often see that the proposal is very one-sided. So I've asked students to pitch, you know, for this classroom, they forget the bookkeeper or they forget the facility management, etc. And I want to apply that to your research proposal as well. So you have multiple readers in mind, because everybody should be persuaded by your ideas. Think of your application company, think of a coach, or Lilia, think of an alumni, you know, all these people. Not anyone on the street. I mean, it should be people that kind of are in our Imagineering community. But make sure you have multiple target groups in mind. So the main purpose of your proposal that you're going to write is to show, okay, what's now the challenge? You have to investigate what's the challenge of your application company. Innovation, innovative capacity, for example. Why is it significant? You have to say something about the relevancy of it. How are you going to do it? What's your approach? How are you going to design the process? And what should be the impact? And then we talk a little bit about the transformation. To what should it result to? You want to ignite something. And the convincing part, so this is the content. But you have to, as I said, you have to persuade your reader. So you have to position yourself a bit as an authority in that proposal, in those 4,000 words. And then my question to you is, how do you do that? Can you convince your reader that you are an authority, that it makes sense what you propose and people should say yes?
So I think based on his knowledge of the subject, like there are some facts that we found. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
maybe I don't know, someone has one.
Someone has another idea?
I felt like I'm
I think something, okay, something like based on their core value, not like against their core value. That would be.
I'm thinking about party girls. It's just us. It's our WhatsApp group and we're in it, so I saw them like sitting here and it's our group.
I'm sorry, I've missed it. Doesn't matter. Core values. What kind of core values do you mean?
Like the company was is going to be like making social impacts, or they are a bit like money driven.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
don't against their like the starting
Yeah.
value.
But you have to use their words or use their
Yeah.
jargon.
Yeah.
If they are a little bit more blue or money oriented,
Yeah.
and then you use their jargon a little bit to convince, this is a really good idea to start with this Imagineering approach.
Yeah.
Exactly, you do that. That's a way to show authority. Yeah. It also shows you have gained a good understanding of with whom you're working with. And I think that's very important. Yeah, that you...
Maybe put them in value also, like not to say you're doing it wrong, or so more like you have this strength, and I think like it can be pushed further,
Yes.
and not like you have something
This
that's
is
not
wrong,
working, and
that is
yeah,
wrong.
So also
Yeah.
like using appreciative.
Yes. But be critical. So you don't have to accept everything on face value. It's good you are critical. Also, what we learn is that often in the first conversation, application company may say this, but when you ask, some follow-up questions, the actual challenge is something else. Yeah.
And is it good to bring in some success stories, like other examples
Yes.
that relates to your?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's also positioning yourself as an authority. So. Being critical, but in an appreciative way, not you doing everything wrong, but it's good to be critical, to dive a little bit deeper, so not just accept what they say, but dive a little bit deeper, or compare it to other cases, to make certain conclusions, to use their words to put your ideas forward. Well, I have let me see what I wrote down. Yeah, I think showing your familiarity, understanding of the challenge, that's also this critical, addressing various approaches, so it's looking from various sides to the challenge, that's also that critical aspect. Why is it urgent? It's always important to ask the question why. Because then again, there's a lot of resources involved, it's a lot of time. Why? Why is this relevant? What's the benefits? What do you want to achieve? And again, taking into account your audience perspective. So you have research coaches you talk to, you have an application company, etc.
I'm thinking, do you think it would be helpful, for one that I was thinking of is to address potential counter arguments that might show up to prove you have the awareness of
Yes.
pros and cons?
Yes.
Do you think that there's space for that in the proposal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's especially so that first chapter you kind of argue the challenge, what's exactly going on. So here you can use these counter arguments to dive a little, to peel off what exactly is going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did I understood right? So you're saying that if you if you present the proposal and
Yeah.
then there are some
People who say we shouldn't.
you
have
already
this,
know
or-
that this kind of
Yeah.
question would appear, so you already addressed it.
Yeah,
in the
so say
proposal.
people might be against this for this reason, but actually it's still valuable because.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it shows you've digged a little bit deeper, you raised a critical question, you understand various perspectives because you understand why people would oppose.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good way to show this authority and to be persuasive. So we talked a little bit about proposal, and now we of course add research to it. So the research aspect is that you have to develop a certain understanding to be able to ignite this transformative move. And in the proposal you have to convince your readers about this, that you thought this through. And what do I need to understand, what kind of transformation? So yeah, I often say, it's also in the manual, your research is only as good as your proposal. The proposal is a very important fundament, also because you lack a lot of time. So if you come back from field trip, basically you have to pick up your proposal and just execute what you have thought, what you've written down there. You lack the time to say, you know what, I use April to ask these critical questions and to actually, peel off what the real challenge is. Then you are delayed. Yeah, so this is really already, all your thinking is already in the proposal. So it has to be well thought through. So it is based, and I think you already mentioned it basically in your answers for the authority. So there is preliminary research in it. And so you already maybe have some interviews, you look at other cases, you look at literature, etc. So there is already a research part in it to be able to do
I know
this.
you said that it's not important to get the approval from the application company on the proposal. It's like related to the academic. But is it also good to be like to work through with them? Or?
Yes, I would. I would include them, but it's not necessarily that you can only submit your proposal if they already formally approved it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you don't need that formal approval
It would
from your
be like
application.
better for us to start applying.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely, I would do that. Because the better you get an insight on what's going on, the better your proposal will be, the better foundation to start in March, you know, actually with your project and your interventions.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay, so the table of contents was one of the questions. First, quickly we go to the requirements. So, well, this is clear. You have to do it for an application company. You cannot do a theoretical. Because as Imagineers, we ignite in practice. Yeah? So, well, we also say you're only allowed to start the data collection of your research-based Imagineering project if the proposal is sufficiently graded. And it means you have already a lot of contact with your application company in the whole proposal design, but actually collecting, that happened in the past, that we had people that already collected the data without having a proposal, and they came to the coach, and I said, but what is this about? And then we kind of had to, then you miss opportunities. If you don't think through what it is about, you miss opportunities in the data collection. It is, as I said, 3 till 4, I said 3,000, but I see it's between 3 and 4,000. So it's succinct, to the point. And it will be assessed by 2 lecturers. So the literature review assignment is only assessed by your coach, but for the proposal, it's your coach and one of the other research coaches. And so 2 people look at it. So this is the table of contents. It's basically 3 chapters. The first chapter is about the challenge. What's the challenge and why, and what will be the focus? The second chapter is the literature review. So you connect the topic of your project to the literature, to the body of knowledge. There has to be a connection. And the third chapter is the methodology. How are you going to do it? Of course, you add a literature list, and maybe you have some appendices. That's not necessary, but could be. That's why I added it there. So the key elements are basically why, what, and how. So the challenge is the why and the what. Literature review is a little bit, it's also what. And methodology is the how. Yeah? So the essence of this proposal that you're going to write is, why is your project so important? What's the justification? What's the relevance? What is it about? And how are you going to do it? Yeah, that are the 3 main questions you have to answer. And of course, I think that relates to also to the golden circle of Simon Sinek. I think I would say what, why, how for a proposal. I would put the what in the middle, and then the why. Some characteristics for the whole proposal. It has to be clear and understandable for various readers. As I already said, you have various target groups. So no necessarily formal language, no abstract language. If you want to use with colors, if you want to use pictures, that's all fine. As long as it's clear and it's understandable. You have to justify everything. So you cannot say, I think it's a good idea. Let's do this. Because I feel like it. It makes sense. You have to argue it. It has to be concise. So I see that a lot. So then I have the challenge, and then there are things are said, and then I'm at the methodology chapter, and suddenly all new questions pop up, because by the time you got to write your methodology chapter, you got so excited that all new ideas came up, and then it's no longer concise. Yes? So, could be the proposal looks very linear, but in the writing, the same with your literature review, is of course a very chaotic process. So could be that by the end that you are, thinking about how I'm going to design it, new questions pop up, but they have to go back to your challenge, have to, kind of review it again, see, am I really incorporating this, etc. So the conciseness is, for your literature review, for your proposal, for your paper, always key. It's a question I also often ask, what's your storyline? How does this fit your storyline? Yes, that's important. Of course, it has to be relevant, it has to be transparent, it has to be really clear, the what and the why, and how you arrived at these kind of conclusions. Will also apply to your paper later. To the point, that's why we made this limitation in words, that we force you. In the past, when we didn't have this limitation, I got, proposals of 80 pages. That's not necessary. A proposal is a very functional document. So, no need.
I think it's better, by the way, to have it concise.
Because you are forced to make choices.
Yeah, it's like the main...
And you have to get to the essence of it, and not all the, the thingies around it, but you have to get to the core. Of course, it has to be well organized and structured, etc. But these are some key characteristics to bear in mind. Well, these are some assessment criteria related to structure and language, but basically I covered this all in the literature review classes. Then go to the table of contents of the first chapter, and I'm only doing today a part of it. I'm taking just 2 elements out of it, and I will then continue. So you get some repetition next time, I will see you, but I do that on purpose. Yeah, so the challenge, the first chapter, basically consists of these subtitles. One of you asked me about it via the whiteboard. So you have to introduce the challenge, so you automatically introduce your application company, of course. Yeah. You have to analyze the challenge, because we don't accept things on face value. We critically analyze it, what's really going on. Maybe based on some talks you already had in the application company. And then you will arrive, and I will say something about this part today. Then you will arrive at your main knowledge question. So the challenge is often a little bit broader, but in chapter 1 you're going to narrow it down to a very clear focus. If this is the challenge, if this is my critical analysis of the challenge, then this should be my focus. It's my main research question, my main knowledge question, my research questions, and the objective. In chapter 1 you also say something about the significance of the study and the limitation, delimitation. I will say something about it in the next class. For now, I just want to focus on these 3 aspects. That's what I only do for today. Next time I just pick it up, chapter 1, and I shortly repeat this. Yeah? Because to me, this is the heart, this is the essence. If you have this right, I have to be careful to say, but I think then the rest will be easier. If you were able to because this is the most difficult thing to pinpoint. Yeah?
What's an example of a main knowledge question?
I will have them. So I'm going to start with the objective. So we are applied to research, knowledge and practice. The objective of the study relates to what you want to achieve. What kind of transformation are you aiming at? In the examples I will show you later, and I also have some proposals here, you see that sometimes students have a short-term and a long-term objective. So for my project, the short-term objective is to achieve this, and I hope, in a year, if people keep on going with the work, while I step out of the process, this is achieved. Yeah, so that is what you define in the objective. So future-oriented. So for us it's often focused on innovation and transformation. Here is an example of an objective. The overall objective for this imagineering research is to find out what can set the emergence process in motion in Schiedam. in order to move the city towards its aspirational future. I think I talked about this before. Schiedam, a little bit of a sleepy city, very close to Rotterdam. The student came from Schiedam, they had a city marketing organization there. She knocked on their door and said, I'm a citizen here, I'm passionate about Schiedam, but nothing is happening. Maybe I can help, to steer things up. And what they said at the city marketing agency is, we would like to see more self-organization from entrepreneurs in the city. But what this lady did from the city marketing was to tell the entrepreneurs how to self-organize. And then something goes wrong in the process. That's a bit top-down. So this student kind of committed it to actually get bottom-up emergence. Yeah. So you need a little bit of context maybe to understand the objective. Moreover, it provides information which can be used to inspire the citizens of Schiedam, because she focused on the entrepreneurs. That was the focus of her study. But on the long term, she hoped it could also contribute to the citizens of Schiedam to contribute to the process. At the end of the research, SPS, that was the city marketing agency, knows what they can do to transform Schiedam towards the aspirational future and the aspirational future of the citizens. So you see, it's getting more and more abstract. And so the short term is more clear, but then she indicated some long-term objectives. Okay, a different one. The purpose of this research is to design an online infrastructure that enables seniors and jobbers to create value and interact with each other. It's very clear, I think. I have the proposal here with me. The application company is into social innovation, and they thought of a platform to have people who look for a job and seniors that need some support to bring them together. The interesting thing is, as one of the questions on the board was, is it possible things change throughout the process? Well, this was a good example because it started with this platform to bring those groups together, but it turned out that the seniors had a need to get connected with each other. Yeah, so sometimes they're lonely or feel more isolated. So in the end, the platform was that she developed about the seniors to meet each other, no longer the jobbers.
We can have access to this.
Yeah, they are on cum laude. Yeah. This is what I talked about earlier. The student of mine who had this hero company, and then this is the Health Innovation Campus. So the short-term objective of this research is to inspire and engage, activate the management of the Health Innovation Campus and its stakeholders to invoke the desired, a lot of difficult words, that will transform towards collaborative learning. So the point was, they had this hub with all the startups. They were there, but there was no collaboration. They were there. So he said the goal is basically to ignite this collaborative learning environment. How can I ignite this? That they're actually going to work and collaborate. And you see, he also made a long-term. The long-term objective is to truly realize this transformation. This entails the fulfillment of all 5 features. These features related to the application company had 5 features. C's, I forgot. Co-creation, coordinate, a couple of C's. And in his analysis, he said basically they only at the moment meet 2 or 3 of these C's, and the other C's, it's great, but it's not practiced yet. So that's what he refers to. So that is the objective. In my view, the objective is often not the most difficult thing to formulate for imagineering students, but this one is often far more difficult. So the main knowledge question is the knowledge part. What do I need to know to be able to achieve this objective? Yeah? And what do I need to know is expressed in this knowledge question. That knowledge question identifies the focus of your study. That's your radar, that's your compass. I have the tendency in my coaching to often say, what was your main knowledge question again? Let's go back. Because your main knowledge question is key in any decision you make. It's exactly, you delineated, I need to know this, I need to generate this understanding, because then I know how to ignite these people, to innovate and to collaborate, etc. Otherwise I don't know how it will work in this context. So it's the burning question you have, it's the key, it's the golden question you need to get an answer to be able to design these interventions and to ignite this transformation. I think really this is the most important step in your research. most difficult step in your research?
At the end of the research, you're able to answer.
Yes. So in your paper in June, you give an answer to this. Yeah. So if you have a well-formulated main knowledge question, I think you're already, halfway through your research.
Is there an example?
Yes. Oh, this slide is to kind of highlight how important I find this. I go to the examples. Let's go to that. So this was from Schiedam. What she basically asked, it's in that sense a rather general question, but she said, okay, what is needed? You could also say, what conditions, what are key conditions to set this emergence process in motion? Yeah, and of course you can inform yourself by literature, but that particular context of Schiedam with those entrepreneurs work a little bit differently. Yeah, so you cannot just say, oh, I read this in the theory, it should apply here as well. You need to understand something about that.
That's the imagineering part, right?
Yes, but this is your knowledge question.
Yeah, but I mean, it should be answered by your imagineering approach.
Yes. Because what you can do is you can have a row of interventions to, on the one hand, already address the process or set the process in motion, and also learn about what are the key aspects that really, people that set this in motion, that these people are going to be active or engaged or committed. Another example, this is this medical hub for medical startups, engage their startups to create collaborative learning environments. So how do they engage them to actually get that? You see here that he already kind of included the objective as well. I need to understand something about engagement, how I can engage these people to get to this collaborative learning environment. This one was about Breda municipality, and it was about, how do you call it? Civic engagement, participation of citizens. So how do citizens of Breda become co-creators of their surroundings? And that might be different in Rotterdam or Amsterdam, or in Sao Paulo or in New York.
And do we need to elaborate it? Like when we ask this question, do we need to say like, we need to look more into this is how we're gonna do it, like this?
Yeah. So if I go back to the structure, so in your analysis of the challenge, then you're critically reviewing the challenge, and then you arrive at your knowledge question. So you say, okay, this is what's going on in the application company. They want to enhance the innovation capacity. I dived a little bit deeper in it. I raised some critical questions, and now, to the best of my knowledge, I say I need to answer this question to be able to achieve this objective. Yeah, so it's the end of chapter 1, and the argumentation is before. Yeah, and this helped some of the executives last year, so I added this slide. If you think about change management, there is a difference between the East, the current situation, and the soul, the desired situation. And you could say the East is your main knowledge question, because you have to understand something about the current situation to be able to move people to the desired situation. So this is your objective. And this is your main knowledge question.
But those words, where they come from?
East and Soul.
East and Soul is German.
German.
Yeah. So I thought I'm going to, last year this apparently helped. You could also relate it to inspiration and ideation. So your knowledge question relates to the inspiration phase, basically. You need to generate a certain understanding. Whereas the objective relates to kind of the ideation. What do you want to create? Yeah, so to kind of help you for the difference between the two. So when you have your main knowledge question, for example, these, what we say is it's often easy to cut up to you have this main knowledge question, and what you will do is you cut it up in a couple of sub-questions. And once you've answered basically those sub-questions, you're able to answer this main question. So the main question is often more abstract. So what are key conditions to set this emergence, or what enables people to learn in a collaborative way? These are rather big questions, sometimes too big, to answer. So we say, you know what? You specify that big question in smaller questions, and once you have these smaller questions answered, you might be able to answer the bigger question. So I'm going to give you an example for that. This is about the Heineken experience. I think I addressed that before as well in classes. Do you know the Heineken experience in Amsterdam?
I went to it.
You went to it? A Heineken experience is, well, you have the Heineken, the brewery, the beer. And you can go there, but you don't really, it's not a traditional tour that you go through the brewery, but it's more, you can experience the brand. So it's, it appeals to all kinds of senses, etc. So that was the application company, so that's the abbreviation, Heineken Experience. And at that time, the thing with Heineken was that in the brewery industry, they were very sustainable. It was important for them, and it was, at that time, it's 2012, also not always a topic of focus for all breweries. So it was very important for them, to be distinctive, the fact that they were sustainable. But if you look at the whole Heineken experience, they had this sustainability corner that was very boring. There were some information sheets. And you would even see that visitors would kind of cut it off, or would glance at it and then would continue. So the fact that they are sustainable didn't really came across in that whole Heineken experience. And that was basically her starting point for the challenge. So this is her main question. The purpose of this research is to determine what is needed in the Heineken experience regarding the subject of sustainability to inspire Heineken visitors and Heineken experience employees to think and act more sustainable and to become sustainability ambassadors. So in her analysis of the challenge, she didn't only say, oh, the experience of how sustainable Heineken is should be better, but she even had a higher aim. She said, it has to basically, based on that experience, visitors should when they exit the Heineken experience, they should become kind of ambassadors for this. Yeah? So it was not only focused on information, but really get people involved. But this is a rather broad question. So she specified it in she cut it up in 4 different areas that together help to answer this. So she wondered, what are the perspectives and interests of visitors and employees regarding sustainability? What are the motivational factors to actually embrace sustainable behavior? What draws the attention now towards the sustainability corner? And what draws attention towards the subject of sustainability? And said, okay, if I'm able to answer those 4 questions, I should be able to say what is needed to actually do this and design this. Yeah? Another one. Community resolve. Community resolve was an application.
Can we present it like bullet points?
Yeah. Like this.
It doesn't need to be like one paragraph.
No, because your whole analysis of the challenge is your already substantiation. So if I, as a reader, went through the challenge and the analysis of your challenge, you arrive at this, and that should be logical then it should make sense. Yeah? Community Resolve was an organization in the UK. They really worked in neighborhoods to resolve conflicts, basically. That's what they did. The problem was that they lost their funding. So they were at that moment in a transition phase. They had to find different ways to generate money. And they also had to, they were no longer a physical organization. They had to transform to become some kind of digital organization, bringing people together. So the idea was, the question was, how this community resolve is a digital one. So somehow, if you go from a physical organization to a digital organization, how do you get people engaged? And they had two different target groups, and I think the student actually made the distinction because she said you have to have people who subscribe, and there's also the financial model in it, and people become members. But people also have to contribute to it. It has to be a co-creative platform. So that was the overall main knowledge question, and also she split it up, cut it up in 4 smaller questions. So she wanted what's basically the DNA. Yeah, and if we look at former clients and the team of the physical organization, what's actually the actual DNA? If we look at the potential subscribers and contributors, in what way do they get involved with a platform, digital platform? And when are they motivated to actually co-create knowledge? You said, okay, if I know those 3 questions, I should be able to say what triggers this potential audience. Yeah? Another one. I think that was my last example. This is the Ideeënfabriek. I think I also discussed that before. That example, my student thought she would enter the co-creation Valhalla. It's a big venue. It's basically what you have with hubs that locate startups. This was bigger with basically established organizations. But a similar idea. All these organizations under one roof, and then you can co-create with each other. But that somehow didn't work out. They were there physically, but there was no connection. So her main question was, okay, how and what enables now these companies to actually co-create with each other, not just focusing on their own. So she cut it up in, okay, what motivates people, what enables them, and what are the mutual needs that can be optimized in interaction. So I hope by these examples it's now clear what the difference is between your main knowledge question and the research questions. Yeah? And what the difference is between your knowledge question and your objective. Yeah? So the research questions, I have to change that term because I changed the term. Specify the main knowledge question. I will change that. Yeah. Not too broad, not too narrow. I don't know if it's really helpful, but yeah, they cannot exceed your main knowledge question because it specifies the knowledge question. Yeah. So, but it cannot be too narrow because then it's not challenging enough to be a research question. Research questions are always open formulated, so are open-ended questions. What are the best practices? Is not an open-ended question in the sense that you can just list some best practices and that's enough. So what we say is the research questions have to be analytic and not descriptive. So the research questions have to spark analysis and not just a description. Yeah? They are linked, but I will talk about it next time. Your research questions are always linked to the literature in your literature review. They of course are linked to each other. They need to be manageable, and here also your coach can help because it has to be feasible in the limited amount of time that you have. Of course it should provide an original contribution, but often in these cases you automatically have an original contribution because it's so context specific, and we always look at situators' knowledge. And this is just a little tool. Do not use how can in the formulation of your questions, but how do. Because you cannot research the future. How can we engage? Yeah, that's something you know in the end. But you need to know something about what happens now. How do get people engaged? What happens now? So then you can say something about, okay, how can we do it in the future? So use it kind of as a guideline to only use how do in your research questions. Or what, I prefer what. In what way, to what extent. It's always my favorite word. So research question is not what are the demographic characteristics of Imagineering students. This is not an analytic question, I can just sum it up. Are Imagineering and Engineering students similar? Is also not a good research question because I can answer it with yes or no. But for example, in what way do Imagineering and Engineering students share characteristics? Now I have to make an analysis. Yeah? Also, a research question is not what does the literature say about engagement. I understand that in the whole process of your proposal, that might be a burning question you have, but it's not a research question. Because you can just look at it, and I would, if this is a research question, I would say it's not analytic, you just need to read. Yeah? Alright, well. So bear in mind, research questions provide a framework to understanding the phenomenon, and the phenomenon is basically what you formulate in your main knowledge question. So they're not questions you want to ask your research participants, and they're also not questions you have yourself. And, I'm almost there. So, just as a summary, the main knowledge question, what do you need to know in order to achieve your objective, in order to achieve something? The main knowledge question is about the what, about the now, and the objective is about the why in the future. The understanding you need to develop in order to ignite a certain transformation. So as you saw in one of the examples, they combined it, that's fine by me, as long as you understand the difference between the two and the difference in function. Yeah. So this is not a good question. What creative tension engine can be designed to create a sustainable relationship between the stakeholders of the library? Because what kind of creative tension engine can be designed, that's not a research question, that's in your ideation phase. So it's not an understanding you need to know. What is a research question is...
how can we make relationships sustainable?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That would be a good research question. But the creative tension engine, that's something you're going to do, but it's not a research question. So, red cross. So, this is basically what I wanted to say for today. And the next class I go back to chapter 1, so I start over with chapter 1. The thing is, what I want to use the last half an hour for, I have all kinds of proposals. And what I want to ask you is to read the first chapter, or scan the first chapter, and then we come back, kind of have a discussion about it, what was striking, what do you like, what you don't like. These are all fine proposals. These are not necessarily the 10s or the 8s, but these are all fine, good, proper examples. And that's how I selected them. So you can choose. I have a proposal which was done in an ICT context. Let's put it like that. This proposal was done in, I have to check, this was a dredging and offshore contractor who offers maritime services. So it's completely different kind of sector. This one was done at a palace that is a monument and serves as a museum. This is the Ideeënfabriek, already mentioned, and this was the on the job, the social innovation. So, what kind of context are you interested in?
Social innovation.
Wat was die idee?
Ideeënfabriek. All of them are on NetSchool, but now for and by the way, I printed enough. So if you want a second one, but first the first one. Social innovation.
The ICT.
Anyone wants a second one?
I can have another.
Just to have? Just to bring home, because otherwise I will throw them in the bin.
Yeah.
Oh, then all of them.
Yeah, that just put them on the table.
Yeah, we'll keep them. We can give them to the other students later as well.
And there are, as I said, also digital, but I think for reading it's nicer to have paper versions. Not very sustainable, and some of my bachelor students always say, no, it's not sustainable. Okay, let's see, what's the time? Because maybe you also want to go for a cup of coffee or something like that. We still have more than half an hour left. What shall we say, that we discuss the proposals Not the whole proposal, only chapter 1. How much time do you need, including your break?
It's the introduction.
Yeah, only chapter 1. 15 minutes? So shall we say we continue in 20 minutes? A quarter to? Because if you want to read, at another spot, that's fine. If you want to go for a coffee, it's fine.
This student is quoting Nicoline twice.
Nice.
What?
They quote Nicoline.
Oh.
Cynthia? Water?
Tea. You just put it.
Did you use the bathroom? Yeah, sorry? Did you use the bathroom?
The kitchen. I went to the bathroom and the kitchen and then took tea. Put it here. But he can pay, I should pay for it. Or no?
I'm not sure.
The tea?
Yeah.
You should pay for the hot water.
That doesn't make sense.
Where
If I
did
have
you-
it for free in the tub.
Where did you have hot water from?
The water?
The tap?
The tap.
Yeah, that's
Like
the
it's-
difference. Because I think if you want the really hot water, it's a bad experience.
Do you use hot water from that directly? Yeah? Can it be used?
In here,
The Netherlands?
I mean, in
Yes.
Breda,
Mm.
the water quality is better than Zealand.
In Zealand, I find it white water.
Yeah, white.
White?
No, not like white, but like not clear water.
Like-
If I put
Put
hot,
some drop of milk in it, like that.
like yeah, you can see it like a bit.
I heard, you know, the Netherlands has the best water everywhere in the
I don't
world.
know
Not
why I
in
think
Zealand.
if it's
Maybe the
The
Delicious.
delicious and also the milk.
Mm.
is
They need
delicious.
transformation
Mm,
in water
nice.
company in
in
Zealand.
Yeah.
because hot water can be really.
Yeah.
But I thought you never drink hot water. I've never drank hot water right from the tap. I always take warm.
That's
Because I feel, I don't know, I feel that
It's not boiled
Yeah.
for coffee, but for tea,
But for health, okay.
okay. And for free,
I thought it wasn't healthy. I thought it wasn't like.
Yeah.
But just in Zealand, I think they have a lot of minerals in it, and when you boil it, there's
Oh.
a surface.
Oh. Mm.
I think I'm freaking out about the literature review. Yesterday I wrote an introduction.
Mm. That's good.
And I was like, where do I get my references from? I'm like opening a page and then opening another one and then this is too exhausting. And then I started coloring,
Oh.
coloring the sentences. Like pink is for this article and green is for this article. And whenever I have it in the same sentence, then I need to code both of them.
I think she just said too, just in this lecture, that the literature review is exercise.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a writing exercise.
Yeah, but it's scored, right?
It's scored, but I mean, like, it's just to practice.
Yeah, it's like when you were bachelor, the semester, the final
But how do you
semester.
pass it?
Not the
I mean, it's you can check the rubric on if you want,
Yeah.
but like, it's, you know what I mean. Like, it's not. She doesn't even read it. It's just our coaches.
Yeah.
That's what it's. She just said. Yeah.
Only
the coaches,
Yeah.
the coach is great.
Oh,
That's what it's, she said.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be so mad at Stephanie if she.
My coaches are pretty.
God made it so
Kidding.
beautiful.
Yes, but I don't feel like reading.
who's the one gave us grade?
After I
said to you.
That's what I didn't know,
Academy?
but she said today that
Then
the
I
coach
don't
will grade
know.
you for literature review.
I don't
just
Oh,
feel
like
that's
like
like
reading.
that's like bachelor
Just too
final
much.
one. The
How you
coach
feel
will
about
grade
a
you,
lot of
not the
graphics?
whole like the
No, the
department.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it's nice when you have
I mean,
a
I thought it was
diagram
very
and a lot of
good. Yeah,
text is
earlier
kind
she
of
said
easier.
just your
I wanna
phone.
ask her if
So you feel it appealing.
Word to that ask
Yeah, it's really great how
Iris.
structured it is. It's beautiful.
Maybe I don't like that much,
Yeah,
that
Iris
the
looks nice.
No, I mean if someone
the
did
small letters,
application.
too much information on one page.
Oh,
Maybe she
yeah.
has a proposal or
For me,
something.
this is
important to see.
Right.
Yeah.
The size.
You were talking and you were and I was just asked her.
We
This is a
forgot
private
our same
We
room.
felt like we're the only one here. Like, why do you
We forgot in the same room.
For the training thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
You're speaking
There's
about
training.
this, right?
Today is for the other one. 2 meetings. But I mean, I don't know if anyone will show up today. I think if no one shows up today, we could do the training meeting today. If you want.
Today's one.
The free workshops.
Ah, that's
thought they had the same
Margin was.
Yeah, yeah, I took the social generation.
God, I mean, this design is just too awesome.
Awesome, right?
Yeah, it's
I like it. I just couldn't understand what are these for.
I don't know, I guess it's just artsy, just because he wanted to do it.
Is it like black and white?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Is it like a sensor?
But yeah, her print is better because I don't have the binder here.
it's a partial fulfillment of the requirements.
It's like when you try to be cool and it messes up. Doesn't even
But
put the
what's
title. Yeah. Too cool.
What's
It's too
Colophon?
cool.
Colophon is the name of the company.
No.
The name is anything.
The purpose of this study is to
You have
bring
some,
in transitional engagement.
Chapter 1. So what are we
What is
discussing?
it?
Because it's really clear.
Chapter
Like
one
these
is
are
the
the
challenge?
research goals.
Did they go in your numbers?
For everyone different. Because it starts with
It's everything up to the literature review.
in the first chapter. And this is the third chapter of the literature review.
Oh, then everything is literature review.
Yeah, first.
Yeah.
Chapter one. We have challenge. Chapter one. Nicoline de Heus found that chapter one is not always challenge, right? Or is
They
it?
call it column.
Significance.
Okay.
So you see that
Yeah,
in this
the
one, she also
transaction
uses, she does the analysis.
engagement.
Oh, something went wrong here with the copying. You miss pages.
Yes.
You miss pages.
Yes, 7. Anna's house.
Every second page.
That explains it.
Like,
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, then you cannot make sense out of it. I copied it wrong. So you miss half of the pages.
actually, it's look, 3, 5, 7. Yes.
I know what I
It's
did with the
misplaced.
copy machine. Okay, this is 3. Yeah. So,
So it's 1, 2, 3.
but that one is also,
Are we gonna discuss it out loud or ask you?
Check on them.
yeah, we can discuss it together. I need to stay on the reading.
No. I was just asking to see if I ask you now or I wait.
You can also ask me now.
Yeah, I just I'm confused because I understood that he's doing the platform, right? He's creating the system. And then in the research question, what is the value for interaction from the platform?
Yeah.
So I thought this is like more futuristic.
The focus is more on, there has to be a certain value of the interaction. So basically the question is when are interactions meaningful? And once you know that, you can actually design a platform.
Yeah, based on
Oh,
this
so he's looking at like,
Yeah, so the platform should
why
be-
is it necessary to have a
Exactly.
platform?
Yeah. So what are the value core interactions? That's basically the main question. Why she highlighted this, I don't know. Because here you see how you should guide your reader, because this is subscribed, your attention goes to this. Right? I read it, I would say, this is the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, okay, what are the shared value from stakeholders?
Yeah.
This is, because she wants to create it to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And which are the relevant
Cognitive, emotional, and behavioral dimensions. That she will come back to that in the literature review. As I said earlier, the research questions are often connected to a literature review. You don't write a proposal very linear, so often you are inspired by the literature for the formulation of your research questions.
Did anyone, by any chance, did any research with an S company?
long time ago.
You remember what was
I
it?
can see if I still, I'm not sure if I have it.
But you know what was it about? Like, no.
I have the whole, in my thesis archive, in my attic, boxes. So I don't think I have it digitally, and if it's in my, I made kind of an overview, so if it's in my Excel sheet, I have to dive into my boxes. But I'm willing to do that this weekend, but I have to open 5 boxes.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
It was a long time ago, but I think what I can remember from other people talking about it, that they were very pleased with the work of the students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what, like, mainly roughly the subject she was tackling? Like,
I
was
remember
it?
the NS and I remember the praise. So that's the 2 things that I remembered. Yeah. But I will have it.
Okay.
I can even check it now.
You're gonna sleep. Yesterday you sleep after.
Okay, this is all what I have right now. Yeah. Okay, so I only know it was, this is the title, Completing Task or Exploiting Opportunities, Innovating Railway Infrastructure as an Emerging Resource. Now I have to look in my box to dig up these because I don't have a digital. And it
So
was,
it's related to infrastructure?
yeah, the Innovating Railway Infrastructure. Yeah. And this was from January 2015. It was submitted.
Yeah, we were thinking about a project for some sort of social project with NS.
Okay.
Like
we
an
wanted-
initiative that we want to do.
Yeah.
Um,
I will go through my boxes and see if
Yeah, I think it's very different from
It's-
what we're.
Thinking more about the infrastructure side and
Yeah.
operation of the trains.
Yeah.
We were thinking more about
The
working with
interaction.
people. Yeah,
okay.
interactions that people have.
Then it would.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah.
So what do you think the researcher companies like how to start help with working people not on finance? So
Yeah, more with people, but I think that we need to choose.
like social
That's a problem, yeah. Yeah, we need to talk to us to make sure we're allowed to.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can do that same parking for the same street.
But
Just
not.
social people.
Well, you just realized that I copied the idea of it only. You had this proposal, huh? You missed every second page.
Oh.
So it's page 7. Page 7.
There must be something.
Oh, okay.
So if it didn't make any sense.
No, it wasn't really like too harsh, but it's like,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe so.
But now so because you missed half of the pages.
Oh.
My apologies for that.
No, it's good.
I just saw it when I was going through
It
it.
was social.
Yeah. But the correct version will be on Kuna.
Ah.
I have a question about my application form.
Yes.
My application company is it's currently a clothing brand, like a
Yeah.
fashion brand, and it's already a brand now, and it has its own webpage. But I don't know. They have the it's formed by 8 young people, and they are all business students or like designers. Now they are seeking for supplements from China, and like supplements, not the manufacturer of clothes in China, and their branding is kind of high, like Givenchy, like the luxury brand, because their theory, like how you say, like their core value is kind of a transformation in clothing brand, like to make it you are not wearing the brand. The whole customer journey is you become the part of the brand.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
think this really new.
Yeah, that's nice.
And they are already on the level.
Yeah.
and so the challenge is like they are not now they don't have a very structured business strategy. Like they just you do this part, I do this part. When we finish, we come for meeting and we do our part together. So it's kind of like low efficiency. So for 1 year, there's no like outcome out of it. And also because they are young, their budget is limited, and they are seeking for like someone invest about this idea, but yeah. So I don't know what I should working on now.
Yeah. Well, I think when I listen to you, I think, oh, this is potential. Absolutely. But I also think is, so what do they need from an Imagineer? So what way can you help them from an Imagineering point of view?
I think she has a good case about like maybe coming up with values and what this like
They already
really
have their own values.
But I mean maybe because it's not like they want it to be more impactful, more social impact with it, like to combine it with a social component. So maybe I don't know, maybe their values are a bit like marketing point of view. I don't know, what are their values?
Their values are like, because the brand, how do you say, like the definition is really high. Like they want to make it, the idea, make it into a high level. Like
The high quality?
High quality also, like if you wear it, you are part of the like brand.
Oh,
Part of
so
the community.
they want to make like an
Brand name
identity.
is called, brand name is called Candid. So when you wear it, your personality is kind of candid.
Like Harley Davidson, you know like that, similar like that.
Okay.
But that's interesting. Because I was also thinking another way. We had various projects in the past that you see that, you know, some values were determined, but that they were not actually practiced. You know, so I also thought maybe something of that, how you actually bring your values alive.
Yeah. So maybe the experience training or something like how to make people more involved in it and really feel this identity.
Yes, that could be very interesting.
Oh, that part we can put in engineering.
Yes.
Customer journey.
Yes.
Customer journey.
And how you actually make, you know, a movement or a community or, you know, this brand identity out of it that, you know, I'm a candid person, like you are a Harley Davidson person, or, you know, that's, I think, a nice example. It's like a lifestyle. It's like,
Yeah, they are bringing this to a lifestyle. But I think they are desired future is really high. And now the challenges also like the budget and
they don't have enough investment.
investment. Like they
This can also be like one of the challenges on how to create these without like high budgets or.
yeah, I was thinking, and if you have a scarcity in money, you have to even be more creative.
So maybe how you can be more creative in terms like, I don't know, something on the streets with people like that doesn't cost money or I don't know, like it doesn't need to be like an event or
like a movement.
Yes,
Not just
yeah.
advertisement.
And then in the end, you are, how do you say, self-reliant, so you don't need the big investors, but you kind of, you know, are self-reliant in your, I don't know, I'm just now going out of the box as an envisioned direction.
I think
It has potential, yes, absolutely, and you can go various ways, so you could, I think,
it might end up like reframing the values or
yeah,
recreating the logo or like something I don't know,
They
I
stay,
think
they
it, like,
succeed.
actually, if you do the imaginary process, it might end up
Or
coming
have
up
a-
with different types
Yeah.
of consciousness.
Or organizational wise, you said they don't always work that well together. And also if you think about an investor that you, not from a traditional business model, but more this co-creative, model that
It
you.
is very corporate, but the thing is like, because it's not an embodied company, so the organizational part and the business part also needs transformation.
Exactly, so if you include that, and then you can think in, the linear ways, we have to have an investor, but maybe there are different kind of business models, more from a co-creative
Maybe she
approach.
can end up with a strategy. I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, but then an engineering strategy and not an old business
They
model.
can build upon when they are growing
There's too
or
much vocabulary
on
starting
a business level, on a marketing level, but they will have the strategy to
If they
focus on.
can make this, for us it's easy, right?
I think there's
You
a
know,
lot of
You know, you
There's-
gaps.
Yeah. So you,
A lot of gaps, so you you can do everything.
yeah, but choose one, not all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so smart because he says.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we go through the proposals? So- You read different ones, but it's more about, your first impression, what stood out, what sparks questions. Every proposal is different, every person is different, so, these are not exact copies or identical, but in the structure they should, the chapters, etc. So, shoot, what do you want to say, ask, remark, what do you like?
I really like the design of this, actually. I don't know, I find it very minimalistic, and with the paper for only this,
Yeah.
I really find it interesting and very appealing.
Good. That's also good to realize, what do I find was one of the questions, how to make it attractive. So what is attractive to read? You see here various examples. And what the funny thing is that her final paper was designed as a magazine.
But colophon, what is it? Colophon?
Yeah, has already the idea of a magazine. So her final paper, she made it in the format of a magazine, and in the magazine you always have a colophon, who was the editor and who was,
okay.
yeah. But this was the first idea that in the end, actually was the,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this was a bit confusing, I think, for me, to read it and then it's not her name, it's not the company's name, and yeah, I didn't know where the title was from.
There's a lot. A lot going on.
Okay, yeah,
Graphics,
yeah,
like a magazine, indeed.
yeah. But it's also good to realize that if you do too much too quick, then the reader cannot follow you anymore. As I said earlier today, take the reader by the hand, go down to the level of the reader, and that's sometimes difficult because you're so into your project and everything makes sense to you. You want to quickly throw this to your, and you see now as an unknown reader, you kind of lose the storyline a little bit, like, what is it exactly about? I cannot follow the storyline. So that's good to realize, yeah. It's always a challenge, I think, in all these proposals. Yeah.
I like the way this person talks about the company. Most of the times use a specific language to not reveal a flaw, but opportunity. Like,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
employees have more unused potential.
yeah,
But then he says, this program is limited, and it cannot be nice for the company to read it.
yeah.
Here also, I think he had, any field has little or no experience with online marketing. I felt it was a bit harsh.
Yeah. And it's also something you said earlier, it's to be critical but in an appreciative approach. This is already there, but it could even, be more further developed. Instead of, you don't have to experience, you don't know. Yeah.
So maybe just reframing it. Like
Yeah.
Online marketing is lacking
Yeah.
in process or something. But yeah.
Or a start is made but not fully developed, to the
Yeah.
full potential and more opportunities. And at the same time, it's good because you are critical and you have to be critical. So I think it's a really good way to frame your criticism. Yeah. Other things that stood out, you liked, you didn't like. What about, you see that sometimes students play a little bit with this main knowledge question. You should call it challenge statements. But what do you, how do you feel about this main knowledge question, the research questions, the objective? Are they clear? Are they properly argued? Do they make sense? Are they properly formulated?
I'm not sure about this one because I felt it was too narrow, not too narrow, too short. Like the research objective, the research objective is to design an online infrastructure that enables senior and jobbers to create value and interact with each other.
So what is lacking in your opinion?
I don't know, I felt that he already reached the outcome, and I feel that it needs to be more
Abstract.
like, this is what we learned, like, we can't really know if it's gonna end up to be an online platform or not.
Yeah. So it's very too concrete, basically,
Yeah, so
too
it's
product
like,
oriented.
We know what the end result would be, but with our approach, I think it should be more about the process that will come up with something more than the real concrete solution.
Or that enables this community to develop, whether it's a platform or not.
Maybe just like create values to people so that they can interact with each other. But then he also mentioned like online infrastructure.
Yeah.
So he made it really clear what he's working on.
Yeah. I think in the end it was not really an online platform because she deviated. It turned out to be different in reality.
Yeah.
But I understand what you mean. On the other hand, I can also imagine that in the beginning it's also nice to have something so concrete to hold on to. Like it should be somehow in a platform or something like that.
Okay.
You know, it can also sometimes help you. Because if you make it too broad and too abstract, then you can go all directions. But I do agree with you. We basically cannot promise a true product. We promise the way to a certain transformation.
Yeah, I think,
yes.
it just got me a bit confused because I feel that when we do this, we know what are the research questions and we know what we intend on doing. Like for example, with Zoe and I, the example we gave, we wanted people to be more engaged in innovation.
Yeah.
But what's the tool to get them there? This will remain a question mark until we do our co-creation sessions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly. Yeah. So I agree. So it's already too concrete and too narrowed down. Could have been more open.
But is it good or is it?
This is workable. It's fine. As I said, all these proposals are fine. We all said to them, these are not the 10s, but these are also not the 5.5s. So these are, the 7s. Fine.
But someone will be reading our proposal.
In a couple of years, yes.
Not judging me.
Yes. No, but you can learn from each other. And I also say every year, oh, you've been so critical, be critical when you write your own proposal.
Yeah. This is also moving pages.
What did I do? Yeah, take it. Sorry for that. But this is still workable. I mean, it's not based on that detail that we think, oh, you completely go off track or it's not well formulated. But it's good now in this process of these classes to be critical and to point out these kind of things and think, maybe I will do that differently. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not so concise and like he knows what he wants to work on.
Yeah. Other remarks, questions, things you liked. What about main research questions and main knowledge question, research question, objectives?
I like the definition, but I feel that here, maybe for some people that are reading, it's good to give some definitions so people can understand if they are not in the field or...
Yeah. But I think with this one, because the main question and the research questions relate a lot to the literature.
Okay.
And I would have already given a preview here, because the reader
Yeah.
is confronted with these notions like transactional
Stakeholder
engagement,
at first.
and then later you explain what it is. So I would have already given kind of a sneak preview of the literature review to kind of explain it. So, yeah. So maybe even have the definitions not here but earlier.
I think he could name them or put a number of the picture instead of just placing it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, exactly. To number it, and now we assume that she made all these, because it's not proper. It's not. It doesn't have a reference. It's not an APA reference. To get back to that class. So if this would actually be copied from another resource, it would be plagiarism. So this says, because it has no reference, then now I assume she made it.
she made it.
That
But
is
she
her
should
method.
address like in
Yes, that
Small
would be
letters.
nice. Yes, I agree. Yes.
So, are they all 3,000 words?
Yeah, I thought it's more,
Much.
at least the
It's
3,000
more than
words, or was it not?
Yeah, I think this one we didn't have the limitation yet, but with all these we had the limitation. But you see, oh no, and then this one we didn't have the limitation yet. So with these proposals we implemented the word limitation, but you see, students still exceeded a little bit, eh?
Yeah, because my like bachelor final is like 5,000. I think they are more than.
Yeah, and if I look, I don't think that the limitations have to be that long, to be honest. If I just flip through this, it doesn't need an abstract, so you can already skip this. A proposal doesn't need an abstract.
in the challenge statement also he says this is not about this but this.
Yeah, and you don't have to. You don't have to say what's not about, you only have to say what it is about. So I think if I go through this one, this is too long, limitation. You don't need that many words. So I could easily, I think, skip already words here to get more concise. But I missed page. Data analysis doesn't have to, here, the validity doesn't have to be a page. This is nonsense, yeah, nonsense. That's not kind. That's not very appreciative. I appreciate all the effort put in that, but you don't need a whole page to address ethics. I see now the student has kind of described all the different kind of validities. That's not necessary. So I think I agree these are more than 4,000 words, but I think the student could easily cut down and get to 3,000.
And also the quotes.
Yeah, we don't include that in the word count. That's excluding that. Okay, ladies. I hope you had already a first understanding about this the proposal. You on purposely do it now already, even though the proposal is due in February only for the first deadline. But I think this also helps in your contacts with application companies, what kind of conversation you need to get them engaged in. Yes. I think in 2 weeks I will continue, and then I go deeper into chapter 1. Yeah? Yes? Good.
Is it still possible to email Emily, or it's too late?
Yes, yes. No, yeah. It's not, I said, don't do it the day before, eh? So
Yeah.
we still have... no, it's next week. Not this Sunday, but the Sunday, yeah. So no, yeah, please email them. These proposals will be online with all the right pages. I promise.
One more question about the citation. If I have a literature, like an article made by several persons, like not one, but like 2 or 3, then I should mention them all in
Yeah.
the...
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends a little bit how many. Do you know how many authors there are? Because I think Eva says if there are 4 or more, I think. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So then you say,
Or this is also before us.
Oh,
then
yeah.
you say,
It's really tough.
Bochum,
Anyone wants to go to see?
Bochum,
First one?
Yeah, I brought stuff.
Somerville,
Do you know if there's a?
and, sorry, I cannot, this is an N, not an H.
Yeah, because he was playing
Word.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, yeah.
that's it.
Do you know if
But
they
you
have a
have to
microwave
look
in the
up
building?
because I don't know
Sorry,
the
do you know if they have a
number.
microwave in the
APA
building?
has a rule,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's at 4 or at 5, but I think it's at 4.
Oh, I'm not sure.
That if there are 4 or more authors, the first time you do it like this, and then the second time you do Bochum at 8. Then you don't have to repeat all the names again because it's
So
an
there's
8.
the microwave there.
But I don't know by heart if it was with
Yeah,
4 or
In the
5.
business.
So if it is with 5, you have to always
The
include the 4 names. If it's with 4, the
think
first
someone
time
else-
you do
fresh
the 4
food, yeah,
names,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
do that.
There's a story.
I think someone asked yesterday.
I have this story
Did you stop time?
I sent you about
Oh, yeah.
this job.
Yeah.
It's short. Sorry. It's
I started watching it, but it's
understand?